Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Friday. Hope everybody's ready for a long and fun weekend. But before we get there, we have a Friday Free-For-All Mailbag happening today. And I know most mailbags that we do after shows, it's a daily mailbag dedicated to the topics that we talk about in the show. But today, folks, it is a free-for-all. So obviously, we would still prefer questions about Notre Dame football, questions about college football, but it's the offseason. It's a free-for-all mailbag. So if you guys want to put in, we've been known to answer questions about food, and we have the occasional history question as well. Now, if you want to make a submission, you put MB for mailbag, or you can put a mailbox emoji prior to your submission. Super chats get bumped up to the top. You guys have been bringing it so far this offseason. It's making mine and Brian's lives a heck of a lot easier. That's for sure.
They are bringing it, Trev, but my microphone coming out and my StreamYard sucking overall means that you are going to have to basically bring up the questions for up until anything that comes in now I can help you with. But before that, sorry, brother, anything up until the golf guy Irish comes out, we're going to
right on
to be you. So
right on. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Friday Free-For-All Mailbag here at Irish Breakdown. Just kidding. But we, what we'll do is we'll start going through, and I'll get at least everybody once, like we normally do, and then we'll circle back to the top because people like to put in a bunch of different submissions. So getting us started here today, folks, is Josh Buffo, the motivational business banker. Where we haven't seen this type of recruiting back-to-back years since what two classes in your Notre Dame viewing history love the IB Nation?
oh man. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday who this is what the best that I've seen in my adult life. I remember, hearing that Notre Dame landed like 3 straight number 1 ranked recruiting classes in the Lou Holtz tenure, but I was like 12, 13, 11, 12, 13 when that was going on. I don't really remember that happening, Trev, to be completely honest with you. So I couldn't really say for sure, oh, yeah, this is the best since the Lou Holtz class. Because then the other thing is, like, I was having this talk with Sean Davis the other day, and it's like it's hard to compare a bunch of high school juniors to a class that I know has multiple Hall of Famers on it. You know what I mean? Like, how do I do that? Because I don't remember those guys as high school players. So it's like, well, can Lathan Wissington be the next Jerome Bettis, which was the 1990 recruiting class? Can David Fuller-Runshow be the next Bryant Young? Can Segun Alexander be the next Jim Flanagan? Who's going to, is Zayden Gamble going to be the next Jeff Burris? I mean, like, is Oli Olababola going to be the next Aaron Taylor? Who's going to be the next Tim Ruddy from this class? It's so hard to compare because we're looking back at what we know happened compared to a bunch of kids who we only know them through their junior years. But a buddy of mine who followed recruiting back then, he said, look, I'll try my best to look at it, have how I felt about those guys when they were recruits and not what they became. And he's like, I think what they're doing now is every bit as good as what Lou Holtz did at the beginning of his, when he really got rolling after the championship team. So it's been fun to watch, dude. It really has. It's been an absolute blast to watch, Trev. And it blows away. Now, look, they got to hold on to the kids that are in the class. They've got to finish strong. There's still some holes that they need to fill. They don't have any linebackers committed yet. They don't have any. They don't have. They're still trying to hopefully get Braden Parks. They'd like to maybe get another DB. We got to find out about what's going on with Albert Simeon here. So, they're not done yet, but man, they're on the verge of having, without a doubt, the best back-to-back classes I've seen in a long, long time. We're going to do a show here when we get done with all the expected commits that I'm going to show you that this back-to-back class also is the first. Like, this is truly showing that Marcus Freeman's program is line-driven, not just in words, but from a recruiting standpoint. Because somebody, my guy Joe, Indy Joe, put a question about, has anybody else recruited the O-line and D-line together as well as Notre Dame? I was like, well, I don't think so, but I got to look at the data, right? And I did that last night, and it's not even close. It's wild. It's not even close. And it's going to be fun to break that down. So we'll do a show about that here in the next few weeks once all the dust settles from kids, not just picking Notre Dame, but, kids picking other schools. Like, I'm like, man, right now, Notre Dame's dominating Ohio State in the O-line. Well, there's a, borderline 5-star lineman that's on the verge of maybe picking Ohio State soon. So, like, let's let all the dust settle here. And Trev and I, sometime in August, late July, August, are going to have a show on that, just kind of putting into context just how good this offensive line defensive class is. And that was just off what it is. It doesn't even include potentially maybe getting Albert Simeon later today. Hopefully they'll be able to land Braden Parks at some point in time down the road. It was just looking at it for who's in the class now and in the 26 and 27 classes. So, man, it was a whole lot of fun, Trev. But, yeah, they're rocking and rolling, man.
Yeah, of my lifetime, I have never seen anything like this. So that makes it a very clear-cut answer. And back-to-back years, it's unprecedented in my lifetime.
Not even close.
Super chat from Wade Garrett. Appreciate you, Wade. Who is the best athlete either of you have seen in person of any sport and then in football? Have a wonderful weekend, gents.
That's an easy one for me. I've said this before. Look, I played against Plexico Burris in high school. I've joked that the first pass I threw in high school got caught by Dre Bly, who's an All-American in North Carolina. Played in the NFL for the Broncos and Lions. Only bad part of that story is Dre Bly was not on my team. But my first high school pass, I've said this before, my buddy Trey Simpkins was running a corner route, drop back. Trey's got Dre Bly beat by 4 or 5 yards. I throw the ball out on kind of a line thinking, hey, my guy's beat, because I just moved from Northwest Ohio, man. You're open that much, it's a big play. I didn't realize Dre was baiting me into throwing, and then picks it off. He goes, played against him in high school, Deion Dyer, James Boyd. I mean, I've played against some big-time players in high school. I'm from the same region that Michael Vick is. He was a year behind me. Saw him play in high school. Best player I've ever seen in high school. Best athlete I've ever seen in person. I've also covered Army All-American games. I've covered best athlete I've ever seen in person is Ronald Curry. Just best athlete I've ever seen in person. And now that was in high school, right? The best high school athlete, best in person like athlete that I've ever seen. Like at college games, probably Jalen Smith. It's probably the best pound for pound athlete I've ever seen in person at a college game. So I look at it 2 levels. There's the high school recruiting aspect of it. That's Ronald Curry. And that includes all the All-American. I've covered the Under Armour All-American game. I've covered the Army All-American game. Best high school athlete I've ever seen is Ronald Curry. Played against Plexico Burris, Dre Bly. Not even close. In person, I still say Jalen Smith, pound for pound, is the best athlete I've ever seen.
Yeah, in person, I definitely did not play against any of those people and those types of players in Elkhart, Indiana.
Elkhart, they didn't have ballers like that in Elkhart? Man, I don't know what happened.
No, sir. The best person I ever played against was probably Jason Spriggs. He was I think he was like an all Big Ten offensive lineman for Indiana.
He was very good.
Got drafted by the Packers, but he was a senior when I was a freshman. So I can't speak to with that level of degree. Best athlete I've ever seen in person in any sport. I mean, gosh, I've been to some like Pacer games where they played like the Milwaukee Bucks and they played against Giannis, who's just, people who are 7'2" shouldn't be able to move like that. So he's probably in contention. Football, it's probably Jeremiah Love. Best athlete I've ever seen in person, either up close at a practice or in a game, would probably be my answer there.
I just forgot about somebody that's in the conversation as well. My freshman year of college, my high school, because my high school was also a big basketball school. So like my senior year, or actually my junior year, they were a year older than me. My junior year, our 2 starting bigs were 4-year starters at NC State, Damon Thornton and Kenny Inge. But so we played Oak Hill back when they were good. And my freshman year of college, we played Mount Zion. Well, their best player that year was Tracy McGrady. So I drove the 4.5 hours back from Fayetteville, North Carolina to watch our team play. And we got smoked, but I got to see Tracy McGrady in person. And he threw a ball off the backboard and jumped up and like in the traffic. Like it wasn't like on a fast break. It was in traffic to get around the guy, threw the ball off the backboard, rocked it. So he would be the basketball version, but I still say Ronald Curry's probably the best athlete I've ever seen. Tremendous athlete. Yeah, he was special.
For sure. Super chat from Tyler Evans. Appreciate you, man. What is the biggest what if in each Power 4 conference this upcoming season? Take this question any way you like it. It could be good or negative.
Yeah, biggest what if that I have. So let's start off with the Big Ten, Trev. What's the biggest what if for you in the Big Ten? Like, again, you can take that however we want to take that one. I'd say the biggest what if. I mean, it's a big one for me, Trev. Have you thought of one already? Because if you have, go for it. Let me hear it.
My biggest what if is what if USC is able to back the hype that they're getting?
Sure.
What if the Big Ten adds another name into the contention with their big 3 of Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon? What if people like some of the people at Sporting News and ESPN that I've seen on CBS Sports, if Jaden Maivit puts it all together, if Lincoln Riley finally figures it out in LA, that's a pretty big what if for me in that conference.
I like that. Here's one for me. What if Bryce Underwood lives up to his high school ranking? If Michigan all of a sudden gets a 5-star top 5 national player type of impact, what does that do for Michigan? Because that's part of the reason I'm not as high on Michigan as a lot of other people are, because I don't think he's that guy. But if he ends up like figuring it out and the light goes on and all of a sudden he is that guy, then that has a big impact. Let's talk about the ACC, Trev. What's the biggest what if in the ACC? For me, it's what if Dabo's hires pan out?
Yep.
What if year 2 of Tom Allen is great, and what if Chad Morris was the right hire? I think that's the biggest what if for me in the ACC.
Yeah, I think Clemson's the way to go there. I mean, I thought for a second of like, what if the portal pickups for Miami don't work out? They're still going to have a good team. I'm not buying into the one-hit wonder type of stuff that I've heard people say about Miami before. So I think Clemson's the route to go there. I'm with you.
Let's go Big 12. I mean, the negative is what if Brendan Sorsby would have been Texas Tech's quarterback? What if and not had the drama? Then the other part of it is what if he would have still been the quarterback and we had the drama? I think that would have shaken things up a little bit in the Big 12, quite a bit.
Yeah, I have a couple out of the Big 12, and I think that's more of a testament to the state of the conference and how wide open it is. One of them was Texas Tech. The other one is, what if BYU isn't just what we think they are? When we've gone through and done the rankings, like, yeah, that team is just kind of who we think that they are. They're going to be well-disciplined. They don't have the top-level athletes. They're just going to be a pretty good football team. What if Bear Bachmeier takes that jump as a sophomore? What if a pass catcher emerges? Like, what if the kid that they got in transfer portal from Oregon ends up being that guy? What if Walker Lyons ends up working out? What if somebody emerges on their D line? So BYU is another one, and then Arizona State in the what if Kenny Dillingham is able to pull it all together?
Yeah. Tell you a good one in the Big 12 also, Trevor's what if Kyle Whittingham, what if Utah wasn't run by a bunch of idiots and would have kept Kyle Whittingham, I mean, for a year or two. For another year, you give him another year of running, of keeping his coaches in place, and another year of Devin Dampier. If Kyle Whittingham was still at Utah, I would be talking about Utah very differently, because their staff would have stayed intact. You got to think. I would imagine that Snowden Smith might have stayed. The hybrid tight end receiver whose name is escaping me right now that went with him to Michigan might have stayed. Maybe the Daly kid, the DN, might have stayed. A lot of those kids that left because Kyle Whittingham left. They would have all be coming back to Utah, and you'd be going into year 2 of the Devin Dampier era. Most of them would have stayed at Utah now, and we'd be like, hey, you got to figure out a way to replace 2 first-round draft picks to tackle. That's going to be a challenge. But whole staff's back. Most of the team is back. Boy, this Utah team's got a chance to win it, especially with the mess going on at Texas Tech. That would have been a big one.
Yeah. I guarantee you, if Kyle Whittingham would have came back, their odds on FanDuel to win the Big 12 would be significantly higher than what they are now. Still not incredibly low, but with the Texas Tech blunder and all the stuff going on there in this offseason, Texas Tech is still the favorite to win that conference.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No doubt.
What we got up next? SEC? The biggest what if in the SEC?
I didn't mean to pull that up. Sorry. Yeah, the biggest what if in the SEC. Yep.
Gosh. I mean, one is positive and one is negative. The negative one is, what if Alabama misses the playoffs? What do you do with Kalen DeBoer? He just signed a 7-year contract extension, like running through like 2032 or 2033 or something. Like, what if our fears about that program come true? Are they just deadlocked and hoping that he'll just rinse, repeat, and be better in 27? And then the positive what if, this one is a little bit closer for me because I've been riding this train heavy ever since he got hired and ever since Byron Brown got to Auburn. But what if they are what I think that they are? Can they go and pull off an upset in Tuscaloosa in the Iron Bowl? Can they be a dark horse to make some noise for the SEC title? Who knows? But those are kind of my two what ifs.
I got several that pop into my head, Trev, and I think what if Kalen DeBoer actually commits to being a physical football team that runs the football and actually plays to his team's strengths? Bama, I'm gonna have a different outlook on Bama. What if, here's a big one. What if Lane Kiffin would have stayed at Ole Miss? How many of those players that left would have returned. Does Caden Lee stay? Does the D lineman that all left stay? Does TJ Dockery stay? And you're talking about a team that's coming back next year loaded with some continuity from a coaching staff standpoint. Man, I would have really liked to have seen what Ole Miss could have done this year if Lane Kiffin doesn't bail, because that team would have had a lot of guys come back. I mean, some of them would have jumped in the portal for a bigger payday, but a lot of those kids would have stayed. And that team we might be talking about Ole Miss being a preseason favorite to win the SEC. If Lane Kiffin and that staff would have stayed together, and most of the players that ended up leaving to go in the portal, not to the NFL, but to go to the portal, would have stayed, Ole Miss had a chance to do something special in 2026 had he stayed. Now, obviously, that's out the window. That's a very big one for me, Trev. And then there's another one. What if the NCAA would have granted Joey Aguilar a 6th year? Tennessee's a team that, if they had a veteran quarterback, would be a team that would make some noise this year, in my opinion.
Agreed.
There's a lot I like about that team. A lot I like.
Yep, I'm with you. A lot of good what ifs in the SEC. That is for sure.
So, super chat from DJ says, special thanks to Brian Alt. I don't follow recruiting closely. His articles keep me informed. Thank you for that. I will pass that along to Brian. Obviously, Brian was a guy that we hired on a part-time basis. He does recruiting for other things. He does some recruiting for us. He's going to have a bunch of stories out the next couple of days on the message board about the Notre Dame commits that were on campus last weekend as well, and did a really nice job. And he's working hard and getting acclimated. So he'd have more out if I would be able to have more time to edit and get his articles back to him. He's got a lot waiting in the wings to get put out these next few days. So appreciate that very much. Anthony Solomon with Super Chat. I really enjoyed the Indy versus the top conference teams breakdowns. They were very interesting and informative. I appreciate that, man. We had fun doing it. And honestly, I can't speak for Trev, but I learned things during that tenure because I had to really take a deeper dive into the various, teams and depth charts and recruiting classes and coaching hires and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. And I think it's good for us to do those things, because whether you agree with, like we're going back and forth with Archer yesterday about this position, that position, and it's all in fun, right? And we do those things for fun. But I think as a fan, when you really stack Notre Dame up, it's good to know truly how Notre Dame stacks up against the best teams in the country, and to learn kind of what those other teams are built like, and where Notre Dame matches up well, where maybe they don't match up as well, where they're strong, where there's areas that they need to continue to improve, all those type of things. It's good to know. I think it's always good to know more about the game, because I love when people are like, Notre Dame should kill that team. And I'm like, name 3 players on that other team. And like, they can't do it. Like, how do you have any idea if Notre Dame should or shouldn't kill that team when you can't name anybody on that team? Like, you're just being a homer. And it's like, hey, let's talk all summer about how Miami sucks. Like, why do that? Because then the best team on the schedule, you're going to talk down and pretend they stink. So if they win that game by 17, so I weren't good anyway. No, that's a great flipping win, because Miami actually is really good, and Notre Dame won that game. So that's just kind of where I'm at, Trev.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great lay of the land. It gives you a realistic look at where Notre Dame truly stands. I mean, there's people on this channel that love them some recruiting. Notre Dame came in 3rd yesterday in the skilled position perspective. There's some areas, once you get into the nitty-gritty, that I think they're doing just fine. Running back, they're doing just fine. But it goes to show you some of the areas that they have to continue stacking. Already doing a good job, but they want to be in the conversation at the skill positions of the Ohio States of the world, especially wide receiver. There's areas to improve. I'm with you. I learned a lot doing it too.
Yep.
And super chat from UT Irish, our guy Drew Rainey. Appreciate you. Long time no talk, fellas. Which players are you most excited to watch this year, and which players are you guys most worried about? Love IB.
Go ahead, Trev.
Most excited, it's kind of a basic answer, but CJ Carr. It has been such a long time that Notre Dame has had a quarterback generate this much preseason hype, and Notre Dame is in the discussion with the Texases and the Ohio States and the Oregons of like, yo, they got a dude under center in South Bend. Very excited to watch him. I'm very excited to see what Tay Johnson can do in year 2, now that he's going to be a full-time starter. I just hope that he stays healthy. It's not one individual player, but this is the highest outlook the offensive line has had in quite some time. So there's a lot. But if you told me that I had to just pick one guy, it's kind of a basic answer, but I'm going with CJ Carr. It's been such a long time since a Notre Dame quarterback has drawn this much deserved offseason attention.
Yeah, we're now ready to go back to the top. Actually, sorry, you got another part of that to answer. Sorry, Trev, I jumped the gun a little bit.
No worries, my man. Which players am I most worried about? I mean, one of them is Ashton Craig, just for please just stay healthy.
Yeah.
There's no player that I'm worried about watching from like a skill standpoint. It's like, oh gosh, I hope we were right about him, and I hope that this player was as good as we thought. I have confidence. I think Ashton Craig is as good as we think. The worry comes in of like, okay, can you make it past Game 6? Can we see you in the postseason? That's where my worry comes from with him.
Yeah, I'm most excited about it's I don't know that it's one player. It's more of the receivers as a in general. Or it's a group I'm excited about. Worried about, there's nobody that I'm necessarily worried about. I think there's one on each side of the ball that I'm like, okay, how are they going to be? Left tackle Will Black, love the talent, but can he put it all together and be that guy? And then on the other side of the ball, it's Christian Gray. I think Christian's got all the talent in the world to be an impact player, but he's got to put it together more consistently. And then, of course, he's making a transition change. That would be my other one. But any other concerns I have are more just around health.
Yep.
Like you said, Trev. Yeah, it's a good question, Drew. Appreciate the super chat, my dude.
Jumping back up to the top, we get Brandon Gilbert in here. Considering what Marcus Freeman has done with recruiting at Notre Dame, I'm just wondering, what aisle was BK actually shopping down?
The one of the least resistance. I'm being dead serious. Like, look, we're going to go get those kids that already love Notre Dame, and those will be easy players to get. And we're just not going to put in the work to do it. I've shared this story before, and it pisses BK lovers off. And, it's why I've blocked all his kids on Twitter, but it's a true story. We were told this by the kid, and other people that have covered the team have supported it publicly, backed it publicly. Another person that covers recruiting at Notre Dame who won't put his name on it for understandable reasons, for relationship purposes, but has called me and said, hey, yeah, dude, I was told the same thing. Perfect example is Chip Long trying to close on Jalen McMillan, standout wide receiver, third-round draft pick, was great player on the Washington team that played for the title a couple years ago. Chip Long's fighting hard to flip him from Washington, and he's on the verge. And Chip's like, hey, man, what do you need? He's like, talk to him about it, wants to talk to Coach Kelly and all this, and Brian Kelly just would not get on the phone and talk to the kid. And eventually Chip Long goes in there and he's like, Coach, man, like this kid wants to flip, but he just wants to know how bad we want him, and wants to know, that this, that, and the other. And kid wants to talk to the head coach. You're the head coach. He wants to hear from the head coach and know who he's going to be playing for. And Brian Kelly basically eventually just kind of snaps at Chip Long and is like, we don't have to beg kids to come here. I'm like, no, you don't have to beg, but you got to get on the phone once to talk to a top 100 receiver, you clown. And it was that kind of stuff, Trev. It was an absolute joke. It was like doing the national coaching search for the new offensive coordinator from his vacation home in Florida. That's not an insult. That's a fact. No, let's not go with Joe Moorhead or Todd Monken. You know what I mean? As our new offensive coordinator. Okay. I think, didn't Todd Monken get a OC job like a year or two later? And how'd that go, Trev? I'm just curious. Didn't he?
I think it worked out well for him.
That's right. Yeah. Won 2 titles at Georgia, a program that had not won a title even longer than Notre Dame's current drought. But, sure, let's go with that. But I mean, honestly, as I've said a million times, if you put in the work, you can recruit at Notre Dame. Exhibits, 2 of the last 3 head coaches were grinders on the recruiting trail. And guess what they did? They recruited at a very high level. If Brian Kelly would have recruited like Charlie Weiss, Brian Kelly might have won a natty at Notre Dame. Let me rephrase that. He would have played in more natty games and then still lost because he didn't want to put in the work and wasn't a big game coach, because he would have got tight like that in big games like he did every other game. But maybe he would have played in enough of them that eventually he'd have got over it and been good enough to lead him to one, maybe, But look, Charlie recruited his tail off, brought in big-time players. Marcus Freeman has done so. Notre Dame, the institution, didn't change in the years between those two to turn them into, what they were under Brian Kelly, which was good. You still recruited well, but it was easy to get some of those kids. You got the easy recruits, and you got by because you had some recruiters that were dogs on the trail. You succeeded not because you're a great recruiter, because Harry Heastan was a great offensive line recruiter, because Mike Denbrock was a great recruiter, because Tony Alford was a great recruiter, because Chuck Martin was a very strong recruiter during his tenure here. You had people like that. Mike Elson did some really good things. Keith Gilmore going out and Mike Elson combining to get Khalid Kareem and Julian Aguilar. Like, you had assistants that did a great job, but as a head coach, he did not put in the work needed to get him over that finish line. And that's what it was. It was the least resistance. Marcus Freeman's going to go into the best, the best, most expensive store with the best products ever, and Brian Kelly's going through the drive-through liquor store. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty much what it is. That's the work you wanted to put into recruiting.
Definitely not wrong. That is for sure.
Still makes me mad.
Yeah. From Nathaniel Hawthorne, any thoughts on the cornball delusional Trojans podcasters who said USC is, quote, forcing Notre Dame back into the rivalry?
Nathaniel Hawthorne, the fact that you even know that anyone from USC said that is evidence that you should probably shorten the amount of shows you listen to. Like, anyone that says that, it's like, okay, take them off the list of things to listen to. I mean, look, I've already explained it. I don't need to continue to respond to stupid USC people that are just running cover for their football program. I don't listen, USC talks for 3 years about getting out of the rivalry because of the changing landscape of college football. And yet we're to believe that it's Notre Dame that backed out and is all of a sudden begging to get back in. Notre Dame just signed 2-year deals with Auburn, a 2-year deal with BYU. They signed a 2-year deal or 10-year deal with Clemson, but yet Notre Dame's begging USC to come back. I can assure you that's not the case. And you guys know I am someone who will absolutely blast Notre Dame if they're doing the wrong thing, if I believe it to be true. And if Notre Dame had backed out of the USC series in an inappropriate way, I'd have told you. But USC, I mean, they're the ones that admitted it. Notre Dame had agreed to a bunch of things, and then all of a sudden they come up with we just found out about the 12-team playoff automatic bid, and that makes us uncomfortable. They kept moving the goalposts. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that cover teams, including Notre Dame, that they just run cover for the team that they do cover. And USC has some of those, but there's plenty of people that cover USC that will put them on blast. But the reality is you're going to make a lot of money doing a podcast by being a blind homer than you will by being an honest, objective person who covers a team. You just are.
Yeah, man. The next time I watch and listen to a USC podcast will be the first time I listen to a USC podcast. I highly recommend you just tune it out.
I did listen to one after the whole thing went down because a buddy sent me this clip of these 4 older USC guys. A couple were alums that were talking about. He's like, "Hey, this is really well done." They gave an honest response. I listened to it, and they were hammering USC. But yeah, I other than that, I mean, outside of that, I agree with Trev. Like, I'm not wasting time listening to USC podcasts. Not because I don't want to learn about the other teams. It's just I have enough experience with those guys to know that you're not getting objective analysis of the team. And that's hard to find, sadly, nowadays.
Agreed. From Beezer12 Washing Beard, what would you guys like to see in regards to the Shamrock Series uniform? Me personally, I would love the Weiss era greens to come back.
I wouldn't mind that for the Wisconsin game because I think that gets you closer. If I remember correctly, Trev, the green they used in the Weiss era would get you closer to kind of looking-ish like the Packers colors. I think a little bit, but outside of that, I don't necessarily love that green. I kind of like the bright green. I like a color. I don't like dull colors. And what I mean dull colors is like I don't like dull shades of colors. I guess that's a better way of putting it. Like, I like navy blue, but then there's ways where you can kind of darken it and it becomes to porn. It's like I don't love it. Like you can take a green that I love and you can make it too dull or make it one of like the pine green or like that kind of green, and I don't love it as much. And you can also now go too bright. Like I love the green, the Kelly green that Notre Dame wears. I think is sharp. And as long as you get the right, pants to go with it, I think it rocks. But anything with that kind of color green, I'm a big fan of, Trev. And there's been some Shamrocks I was like, dude, that's going to look stupid. I've said this before, the Yankee Stadium game against Army, I was like, that's going to look terrible. And I didn't like them like in the Twitter thing. But when I saw them on TV, I was like, oh, I was wrong about them uniforms. Those look good. Those look really good. So yeah, they did well there. But I think just the only way I would like that green is for like the Lambeau Field green. That's it.
Yeah, as long as they don't change the helmets and the helmets are still gold, You can add a little something to the helmets, but as long as they're still gold, that's really all I care about. Paying some sort of homage to being up at Lambeau Field and replicating the Packers green. As long as they don't replicate the Packers yellow, I'm cool with it. But gold helmets, some shade of green to pay respects to the Green Bay Packers, but that's where I'm at with that one. I'm with you. Then from Aiden Benami, who was the best recruiter player-wise for the 2027 recruiting class?
Oh, man. Honestly, I haven't heard a lot about who that would be, to be honest with you. I couldn't tell you. I heard James Holter put in a lot of work with Albert Simeon this weekend. Yeah, I honestly, I don't know that I have a good answer for that. I know David Filarancho has been putting in a lot of work with Braden Park. So, like, there's been some guys that I've heard are putting in work with, like, a specific player. Jackson Vaughn, was involved with Marcus Fakatu. That didn't work out, obviously, but he's talked to other kids. Xavier Hassan. Zayden Gamble did a yeoman's effort with Julius Jones Jr., obviously. But no, I haven't heard of, like, one kid. I think a lot of it is just, like, the whole class is very engaged with kids that are on the board. It hasn't been like a Drake or a CJ where it's like that one guy that's the leader of the class. I think this class as a whole, there's a lot of guys that are involved with a lot of other guys, and I think that's really been something that's been impactful.
Yeah, agreed. From JP Buellsfeld, besides CJ Carr, who would be the biggest loss for success in 2027 to a season injury in game one?
Dude, why are we even having what? JP, I love you, brother, but why would you want me to ask a question about who would be the biggest injury loss? I don't in 2027. Like, I don't even know who's going to come back in 2027. So, maybe you mean 2026, but Leonard Moore, I guess. He's their best defensive player. Tay Johnson. Like, I don't even really want to dive into this. I love you, brother, but, like, I don't want to be talking about questions about who might get injured. I don't know that there's anybody outside of CJ Carr that is a, oh my gosh, your season's over type of injury. I don't know that they have that because they're so deep. But your best player is Leonard Moore. So my answer would probably be Leonard Moore. It's the best I can come up with, but man, I don't love answering questions like that. I only answered it because JP is an OG. He's been around forever and I love JP, but yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, those are the questions that you just don't even want to try to put it out there into the ether. So I will just say this. I fall in line with where Brian is at. I get it completely. But that's just a thought that I don't want to have. This season has so much. This season has, I don't want to say writing on it, has so much potential to be a magical season. I don't want to spend the rest of the offseason thinking about ways that it could potentially get derailed or thinking about ways that it could be bad. So I'm gonna just not even put that out there. That's where I'm at with that one. From John A1, what's the most underrated aspect of Notre Dame recruiting under Marcus Freeman? For me, it's the culture building he does with the personalities he brings in that are also talented football players.
So I proofed a bunch of Brian Alt's articles of the commits that are going to go out on the message board next couple of days. And I'll put them out as front page stories here in the next couple of days, but I like to let those be up for a day or two for the premium members before we put them out as free stories. But it was interesting talking to them. And then Sean Davis and I were talking last night. He was talking to some of the recruits and some of the commits as well. And they say, Marcus Freeman almost never talks about football. Like when he's recruiting us, he almost never talks about football. Like we have to bring football up. And I think that's been a big part of when you talk about recruiting under Marcus Freeman. I'll stick to Marcus Freeman specifically as part of the reasons the players connect with Marcus Freeman is because they get the sense that he genuinely cares about them beyond the football field. And then when they get on campus, there's an interesting quote, and I can't remember which player it was, but he was talking about how when he went to a lot of other visits, they're never around the current team. And Marcus Freeman always has the current team around around recruits, because a lot of times, like, look, and I've had to make these decisions when we were, when I was a recruiting coordinator. It's like, who are you going to have host recruits for overnights and different things like that? And Which kids do you not necessarily want around recruits and that kind of thing. And sometimes it's like, look, we don't want these kids necessarily being exposed to what this program is like. We want to kind of control the narrative. And the Notre Dame players are around these recruits a lot during the official visits. And it's because the big thing is it's not so much just about culture, but it really is whether there's different ways it's used. You know, I'm an older person. I never talked about the brotherhood when I was a kid. We talked about it being family. But that's what they mean when they say, you know, it's a brotherhood. What does that mean? It means we're family. We're not just a team. We're a family. We've got each other's back. We care about each other. We look out for each other. That means so many things on and off the field. Brotherhood is also you're at a party and you see your buddy. Okay, hey, man, go get him. You know, take him out of there. Go get him. Protecting each other, having each other's back, doing right by each other, building each other up. That's what family does, right? That's what brothers do. And it's beyond just, hey, man, we're going to go win that natty. That's part of it, obviously. And Marcus Freeman doesn't shy away from that. But it's also like, hey, man, you're coming here to be something to be part of something special on and off the field. And it's very genuine. And that's something that Olu Olababola said. It was fascinating. That was a fascinating recruitment trip because I remember telling you after the visit, like, yeah, I don't think they're going to get him. Because I'm talking to my sources on the staff, and they're like, yeah, he was just kind of quiet. He wasn't super engaged. He came with his agent. Family didn't come. And, you know, I think he's a great fit here, but we just don't think he likes us. Little did they know he was done with recruiting by the end of that visit because he was just kind of sitting back watching and observing. And one of the things that he had said to multiple people was watching Marcus Freeman engage with people, his current players, not recruits, the current players, seeing how they respond to him. You could tell that the things that he says are real, that he's going to have my back on and off the field, whether I'm a starter or a backup or whatever. And that meant something to the kid. Yeah, of course you're going to be great to me and kind to me because I'm a 5-star recruit. You want me to come here. But when I'm watching him engage with his team, with other coaches, with players, and just seeing how people, you know, respect him and how he cares about other players is something that was very impactful for him. And that's not the first time I've told that story. So it all boils down to this. There's a genuineness about who he is in the program he's building that reflects it. So he doesn't have to go tell somebody that, hey, just so you know, so-and-so is going to be leaving after this year. And in order to negatively recruit and convince a kid not to be here, his program is all about, hey, we're doing something special. Let's sell who we are. And if a kid doesn't want to be a part of who we are, unless we pay him the most money or negatively recruit somebody else, that's not a kid that's going to fit into this culture. And I think that's a big part of it is he's a genuine guy. Like Sean and I are talking, like he's got a charisma. It's not fake though. He didn't take a charisma class at Ohio State. That's who he is. That's how he was raised. You know, and anyone that's heard anything about his parents, the discipline that his dad taught him, you know, the support that his mom gave and support sometimes is pushing. Hey, I love you. That's why I'm coming down on you right now. Because I do love you. I do want what's best for you. And you can see that parental influence in who he is, the man he is, and the type of parent he's trying to be, but then also the kind of leader he's trying to be and sort of father figure-ish type, you know, he's trying to be with these players. And that stuff clicks because listen, not every young kid is this way, but the young kids that fit at Notre Dame, they're very good. They got very, very good BS meter. Very good BS meter. And that's something I've always found very fascinating about kids that like Notre Dame. It's like I remember one time talking to Liam Eichenberg, and he was telling me about something a coach told him, and he's like, "You're telling me this like it's going to somehow impress me, but I actually think by you telling me, you're telling me I'm going to come to Ohio State and start as a true freshman. Are you serious? Like that's a lie. You know what I mean? Like you're just telling me that because you think it's going to work. Where, you know, that's a sharp kid. He gets it. Like, dude, you're just giving me spin to get me there. You know, like Coach Easton has told me, Liam, you're probably going to redshirt as a freshman, and then you're going to need to put in the work to get to this, this, and this. That he wanted the honesty. Liam wanted the honesty. And a lot of kids that come to Notre Dame and fit at Notre Dame, that ultimately is one of those winning pitches. And that's also why the retention is so strong. Because they're not lying to kids to get them here. They know it's going to be tough when they get to Notre Dame. And they're bought into that. And if they're not bought into that, this may not be the place for them. So I think that the genuineness, the family, the fact that these kids truly believe that he cares about them is a big reason why this thing is working on the field and then also on the recruiting trail.
It's a Friday Free-For-All Mailbag here in the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You guys have been putting in some really good questions here so far today. Let's keep it rolling with Mohammed Abdi. Notre Dame was ranked number 1 in ESPN Future Power Rankings of Power 4 teams. Do you agree with that assessment? If not, which team will you rank above them?
I do agree with it. I think it's difficult to do a ranking like that because things in today's era, because of the transfer portal. I mean, we talk about how good the culture is in Notre Dame, but like, what if something happens and all of a sudden 30 guys leave in an offseason? Like, okay, that changes things. I could say, oh, well, I think Texas is in the conversation. I think the present and future at Texas is going really strong. I think the present in Oregon and future at Oregon is very strong based on the conversations that we had in yesterday's show. I think Oregon and Ohio State are 2 teams that are very much in the they're not going away type of conversation. I think Georgia's starting to figure out recruiting at certain positions. Although, Trev, here's a fascinating statistic. Just looking at the On3 rankings, in the last 2 years, Georgia has not signed a top 100 defensive lineman in the last 2 classes.
That's crazy.
That is insane to me. So they got some stuff to figure out. But, Texas A&M, if they can keep recruiting like they did this year, because hey, it's a great class, but are you here to stay, or are you what USC did last year, where we're going to spend money on an elite class, but we don't have the money to do it again next year? Whereas Notre Dame's like, hey, we got money to spend on 26. Oh, and by the way, we have money to spend on 27 as well. That's another question. But I think just off the top of my head, those are the programs right now that I view as in the conversation. I think it's Notre Dame. Somebody wants to make a case that it's Texas. Somebody makes a case that it's Oregon, Ohio State. I would be sympathetic to those discussions and conversations. And let's see what LSU does under Lane Kiffin. That's a one that I have my eye on as well.
Yeah, it's with this day and age of college football, you have to be able to kind of put aside the transfer portal to a degree because it's so tough. You can bring in a top level recruiting class, but at some schools, half of it is already gone by the time they're supposed to be sophomores. So that's what makes it tough. Notre Dame, schools like Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon have limited the losses of top high school recruits. So they would all be in the discussion for me as well. I'm with you. Want to hear from Sean Stewart. Was your football knowledge regarding personnel types enhanced later in your playing days or when you first got into coaching?
Personnel types? Are you talking 11 personnel, 12 personnel, stuff like that? Is that how you're taking that, Sean? Trevor?
Yep.
That's stuff that I knew about in high school. We were using that stuff in high school. We would have names for it, but yeah, that's something that I learned in high school. Well, yeah, kind of in high school, especially in college.
Yeah, it started to get introduced to me in high school, and then obviously the coaching days is all on that side of the screen. So, yeah, playing days for me.
There's a lot about the game I learned when I got into coaching, obviously, but that's a pretty basic thing that you play high school and college football, especially, college football, you're going to learn that stuff as a player, for sure.
For sure. From Bobby S. Any thoughts from the pictures of the recruits who visited? A couple of mine, Segun has longer arms than I thought. Flanagan is much bigger and taller than I thought. And Simeon would be the shortest offensive lineman.
Agree. Segun, I don't know that he has longer arms than I thought. I think it verifies his length. I think he was shorter than I thought and thicker than I thought. He was listed at 6'4", 260. He's 6'2", 290. That's very different. He was a lot thicker than I thought and a good thicker. Flanagan, Richie has grown. I actually talked to somebody about this the other day. He's grown an inch and he's up to 285. So Richie is starting to tap into that DNA that his dad had and that James had. He's filled out. He looked a lot different. I have a picture that Angela took of Richie in the fall when he visited for a game. And then you see the pictures from the and you're like, my man hit a growth spurt. He hit one of those maturity spurts. You know what I mean? Where you're not looking like a little kid anymore. Richie was a big kid, 6'3", 265 in the fall, but he had that baby face. You know what I mean? He still looked like a boy. And you see pictures there, and you're like, he's starting to look like he's kind of growing into becoming a man physically. And so I wasn't shocked when you see that, and then you hear that he's taller and he's up to 285 and he's really filled out, and you start to say, okay, you knew it was coming with him. Again, that's why Notre Dame likes recruiting parents of former NFL players, and it's not just he played in Notre Dame. It's like Jim Flanagan played in the NFL too. He was a great player at Notre Dame, but you knew that DNA was going to kick in at some point in time, and it has. So Simeon would be the shortest offensive lineman, but again, Olu's 6'6", James Halter 6'5", Jackson Hill's like 6'6", and Richie Flanagan's up to like 6'4 plus 6'4. So I'd say Albert's probably about 6'3", 6'2 and a half, 6'3", which is what I expected. He's listed at 6'4", but that's about what I expected. So yeah. Other than that, in Lathan Wisington, I knew he was thick, but just seeing him and Isaiah Rodgers in person, you're like, dude, those might be the two most physically put together running backs that are in the program right now, outside of Kedron Young. They're good looking kids, man. Trying to think of who else.
My biggest takeaway was Champ Mons already looks like he's
my gosh,
junior in college physically. Yeah. That's a big kid.
He's he's put together well. Like he's jacked. It's not just like he's not the next Jared Lorenzen. Like he's put together pretty good. May he rest in peace. I don't mean that as a disrespectful comment to the late Jared Lorenzen, but like he was a big kid. He was just a naturally big pudgy kid. Champ is naturally thick cut, put together kid.
For sure. Got one in here from In Lieu of Whiskey, Holtz My Beer. What do you think the reasons are that A&M and Notre Dame have been battling for so many recruits this year?
Well, I think they're both going after the best of the best, and they're not afraid to go anywhere to get them. I think that's a big part of it. It's not like, if you think about it, have they gone against a Texas kid against each other outside of John Meredith, who never really was interested in Notre Dame? I think most of the kids Caden Henderson is a Florida kid. Albert Simeon's from Louisiana. Now it's 3.5 hours east of Texas A&M. So, I mean, that's kind of in their backyard, certainly. Segun Alexander's from Atlanta, originally from Canada, plays prep ball in Atlanta. I think when you look at a lot of the kids that they've gone against them for, a big part of it is because A&M has got money, and they're like, we're going to go anywhere to get the best players. We're not going to just – obviously they're going to have a very heavy Texas influence. You look at their recruiting class, there's a lot of kids from Texas. But, hey, if we want a 5-star linebacker and he happens to be in Florida, then we're going to go get the best linebacker in the country from Florida. We're going to go over to Georgia and get this really talented defensive tackle. So I think there's just a willingness of both teams to say, hey, look, we're going to go where the best players are. Now, for Texas, Texas A&M, they can obviously focus in state a lot more than Notre Dame can focus in their state. But I think that's a big part of it is A&M is going after the big dogs, and Notre Dame's going after the big dogs. And that's why you're seeing them, do a little bit more battle. A&M's had their share of wins. Notre Dame has had their share of wins. Notre Dame is currently on a hot streak. If they're able to get Albert Simeon, I think that'd be 3 of 4. So that would obviously be a positive. But yeah, they're both going after the best players in the country. That's why.
Yep. Some of it is also recent on-field success. We're talking about a team in Texas A&M that just made the college football playoff for the first time in their program history, and both Notre Dame and Texas A&M are in the top 10 on FanDuel's odds to win the national championship this season. So that plays a factor as well. But I agree with you. Got a question in here from Adam Garcia. Which teams under Brian Kelly, if any, do you think under a better head coach wins a natty?
Oh, several. I think the 11 team has a shot to have won the natty in 2011 if they had a better coach and better coaching staff. You're talking about, you had Zach Martin, Chris Watt, Trevor Robinson, Michael Floyd, Tyler Eifert, Sierra Wood, Jonas Gray, Theo Riddick. That's just on offense. Then you look on defense, you've got Capron Lewis Moore, Stephon Tuitt, Aaron Lynch, Darius Fleming, I think, was still on that team. You had Jamor Slaughter, Harrison Smith, Manti Te'o, Robert Blanton, Gary Gray. That team was absolutely loaded in 2011, and you went 8-5. Lewis Nix, that team was so good. Ethan Johnson was on that team. That team was loaded, and you couldn't do that.
Couldn't get to 9 wins, let alone
a natty. Beat a South Florida team that had a losing record. Couldn't beat Pitt. It was That was one. 15, we've talked about this. 15 team would have had a chance to win a title. That would have been a tough title team. They should have been a playoff team that year. That one would have been tough. Bama was really good in 15 with Derrick Henry. Clemson was obviously really good, but they should have beat Clemson at Clemson in the regular season. That Bama game would have been a tough matchup. I think Notre Dame could have played in that game and competed in that game, maybe won that game if they had a better coach, but to definitely win it, that was a really good Bama team. Even with Jacob Coker at quarterback, that was a really good Bama team. But I mean, I'd like to see Notre Dame and with that 15 team, with that offensive line going against Bama's defensive line with Harry Hiestand and a real coach, real head football coach. You know, Mike Denbrock at OC. I would have loved to have seen that. And then the other one for me is 2018. Again, that would have been a tough year to win it because Clemson in 18 was a great team. But I thought Notre Dame played with them for most of that game. There was about, you guys should, I don't know if he's published it yet, but Sean Davis did an interview with Tony Jones Jr. And he talked about that game. And a little bit is like Tony says, and you'll see it in the full interview, so I encourage you to watch it, I think it was on the Lucky Lefty podcast. I don't know if he's published it yet, but Tony talked about, he's like, there's 5 plays. That game was about 5 plays. With a better coach, you flip coaches in that game, I think we have a potentially different outcome. Those are 3 off the top of my head. I know some Notre Dame players think 14 might have been their best team. I don't know that I can go with that because I think the lack of depth on the D-line and the injuries they went through, like that would have been a lot. But you had Kavari was suspended that year. DeVaris was suspended that year. I mean, there was a lot going on that year, but that's another team that I know some former Notre Dame players like to point to as a team that could have made a run as well.
Yep, we have all the same teams in mind. I'm with you completely. Just got a super chat in here from our guy, Alan Watson. Appreciate you, Alan. Who on offense, defense, and special teams is going to surprise us this year?
Well, if I knew that, then it wouldn't be a surprise. I'm totally kidding. Offensively, I'm totally joking. Offensively, I think the biggest surprise, I think and I don't know who it's going to be. I think there's going to be either a freshman a wide receiver that is a bigger impact player than maybe people think. Whether it's Micah Gilbert, Cam Williams, Bubba Frazier, somebody's going to have a breakout year that's not named Jaden Greathouse, Mylan Graham, or Quincy Porter. I think everybody thinks Jordan Faison is going to be pretty good, but I think when people talk about breakouts, I think it's one of those 3 who often gets mentioned. Oh, Greathouse is going to get back on track, or it's Mylan Graham or Quincy Porter. I think someone other than them is going to have a surprise season. Doesn't mean they're going to be the number 1 or the number 2, but they're going to have surprisingly good season. And the other option would be James Flanagan, because I feel like he's sort of like a middle child right now, where obviously Cooper Flanagan is the known, and then everybody's excited about Ian Premer, rightfully so. And we forget that James Flanagan is a dude. And I think he's going to be a surprisingly impactful player. James Flanagan is one of those kids at tight end that could catch the ball, could have 2 catches for 21 yards, and you're like, dude dominated because of what he can do in the run game. Like and that's what I keep saying, guys. Flanagan is going to be a dom duo in a run game this year. I cannot wait to see what Notre Dame can do in some of their 12 personnel packages with James and Cooper on the field together. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's my offense. What's your offense, Trev, before we move to defense?
I'm going Sullivan Absher. There's a lot of people there's a big contingent of the fan base that still just assumes he's the placeholder for whenever Jags gets healthy. We still get questions about it on the premium message boards. We get questions about it in buy-sell holds and daily mailbags. When Jagsaw's back, does he just fit in at right guard? And it's like, hey, look, man, I don't know if Sullivan Absher is going to be in a spot where he's going to be willing to give up that spot, nor do I think he's going to be playing at that level. So I'm the surprise for me on offense this year is Sullivan Absher. I think not that he's going to go out and win the Lombardi Award, but I think people are going to watch him play. It's like, oh, okay, he wasn't just the number 2 guy placeholder for Jags. So that's mine on offense.
I dig it. Defensively, who's going to be the surprise player on defense? Can I say Drake Bowen just because he continues to get overlooked
at this point,
nonstop?
Bro.
I mean, goodness gracious. That'll be one. People are going to finally realize and respect. I think there's just people that are still just waiting on him to get benched. It's wild. I think Drake Bowen he's going to have himself a season. That would be one for me. If Bryce Young dominates this year, I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. It's a breakout, but it's not a surprise. Like Christian Gray would be my other one on defense that could be a surprise this year. Because again, I think he's another one that people are just like ready to write off and, ready to move on to the next guy. And I could see him having a big year.
Yep, I'm with that. I mean, as far as people not talked about, I mean, Elijah Hughes comes to mind. Like, he's one of the few returning defensive tackles that played in games last year for Notre Dame's defense. And I understand why. A lot of the attention goes to Tion Gray and Francis Brew and Christopher Burgess moving over, Armel Mukum, Jason Onye coming back. But Elijah Hughes is one of the most experienced players on the interior from the Chris Ash system that comes back. So I think he could surprise some people this year. I don't know if he'll have a Riley Mills 2024 type of season, but I think he'll turn some heads. Yeah. That's probably one of mine.
I could see that.
Then question in here from Jason Hoffman. How do you think Malik Zaire would do as a quarterback of this team?
I think he'd do fine because Mike Denbrock would adapt the offense to fit Malik well. I mean, we've seen what Malik Zaire can do running a Mike Denbrock offense. I mean, that's the thing that makes it a little easier, Jason, is because we've seen the offensive coordinator that's at Notre Dame now have some pretty good success in 3 games with Malik. I mean, they obviously had an upset win over LSU in a bowl game where they ran all over LSU. And then, of course, the Texas game was just a brilliant offensive performance. I mean, Malik was something crazy like 18 of 21 in that game. And then he was only, I think, 7 of 18 against Virginia, but he threw for almost 200 yards in that game, had 2 bombs, had the long touchdown pass to Will Fuller and rushed for like 70. He was on pace to rush for over 100 yards and throw for 200 yards in that game. Of course, everybody only wants to talk about the completion percentage, but I'm like, you were going to get that sometimes with Malik. There was going to be a game where Malik was like 9 of 23, but you're like, but he made big time plays with his arm and his legs, and you won that football game. The play after Malik got hurt, Deshaun came in, handed the ball off to CJ Prosise, who went down and scored to make it 27-12. Notre Dame was on the verge of running Virginia off the field with Malik at quarterback that day. And then obviously him going down, you could just see the Notre Dame team didn't react well to that initially, and it allowed Virginia to come back. But if Malik doesn't go down, they're about to blow Virginia out. And I've said before, I don't think that team loses a game that year if Malik doesn't get hurt. So it would look honestly a lot like what it did with Riley in 24. Honestly, I mean, we have evidence of what a Mike Denbrock offense looks like with Malik a decade ago. And Jason, you could respond. I'm not saying you would. I'm saying you could respond and say, well, yeah, man, that was 11 years ago. What about now? Fair point. Then I would say, let's look back to the 24 season. I think that would give us a pretty good idea of what the offense would look like with Malik at quarterback. I think you'd see a little less of the quick game and more deep shots with Malik at quarterback. I think Chris Mitchell might have been a guy that really liked playing with Malik because you would have been able to use some of his downfield ability a little bit more, for sure.
Yeah, agreed completely. Yep. Agreed. From Play Like a Champ, is the future state of the linebacker room concerning? Feels very thin after the current guys who get snaps. A few smaller classes with some talented guys, but it feels like most all guys have to be hits.
I don't agree with that. I understand where you're coming from, but I mean, I don't agree with that. Notre Dame's they'll get 2 linebackers in this class most likely. They got 2 last year. I mean, they even if next year they lose, let's just say Jaden Ausbury, Drake, and Jalen Sneed all go pro, or one of Kingston and one of Jaden Ausbury go pro, one stays. You still have that second guy. You still have Menframe. You still have Kahanuki. You still have Kookia. You still have Teddy Rizak. You still have, and tell me if I'm missing somebody, you still have Thomas Davis Jr., you still have Jacoby Clapper, and then you'd have whatever 2 kids that you'd get in the 27 class, and then, 1 or 2 of those guys would then be gone. You got to remember, we're talking about a team that plays 2 linebackers. I think that's the thing, too, that as Notre Dame fans, we got to wrap our head around is we're not talking about a Sam, Mike, and Will depth chart. It's Mike and Will. That's it. So if you've got 6 linebackers that are healthy and can play, you're 3 deep at that position. And right now they're 4 or 5 deep. So while I think that they need to get back on track to landing some of those big time guys, they haven't really gotten one since the 25 class so far. I don't think they're in a position where, boy, if everybody doesn't hit, they're in trouble. They only need 2 out of the 6 to hit as impact starters, and everybody else can just be depth players, and you're in a good place. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about it.
No, I'm not either, because I think there's going to be some good buffer players in between. Now, there's still players you got to close out on, but I'm with you. The room is still talented. But the standard, well, maybe not necessarily the standard. The expectation can't be every single year they have a Drake Bowen and a Jaden Osbury and a Jalen Sneed and a Kingston Viliama-Asa and a Madden Faremo back every single year. They'll still be talented. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I'm with you completely.
Yep.
From Jay Melvin, Brian, you mentioned yesterday that A&M lied to Caden Henderson that Coach Marcus Freeman was leaving after this year. I had heard someone say that's what happened on X. Is that what made you lose your respect for X?
I didn't say that. You said that. Like, you literally said that in a question, and now you're acting like I just announced it in a show. I responded to your question. So, of course, that's the thing that caused me to lose respect for Mike Elko. You've brought that up 3 times this week. So you said that in the show. I'm pretty sure you said that in the show yesterday, and I responded to it and confirmed it. But yes, that's a big part of it. So yeah, I wouldn't say that he lied to him, because we don't know if Marcus Freeman is going to be back or not next year. I just think that he was not completely honest with his source of information and the information they shared, and basically said it in a way to try to tell the kid, yeah, you may love Notre Dame and you may love Marcus Freeman, but he's not going to be there next year, which is a very unfortunate thing for him to say.
Brian, we are now to the point where we're down to Golf Guy Irish, but there's still a lot of questions above it that we'll circle back to. But
okay, perfect.
From Golf Guy Irish, if you had to make a prediction now, do you predict the next quarterback after CJ to be either committed, already on the roster, or do you see them going after a portal guy again? Appreciate it.
I'd be pretty surprised, Trev, if they went to the portal for a quarterback. I think what that would tell us is that we didn't see the growth from Teddy or Noah this season. That's what that would tell me, because I feel like CJ Carr is this year's Riley Leonard, in that you needed that year of Riley before you really felt that CJ and Kenny were going to be ready. And that's what you're waiting for this year from Teddy, Noah, and Blake, is that you feel like you're going to need another year of development. So if they go to the portal next year, it's most likely because they just don't feel any of the returners are ready. And I don't think, if that's the case, I don't think they want to just assume that Champ will be ready to go either. Now, he might be as a freshman, and we'll see what, kind of how things go, but it would take the current group not developing well, in my opinion, for them to turn to somebody else in the portal. I think that it would take something not going well for that to happen.
Yeah, I don't see them going to the portal, or else why ask Teddy Gerard to reclassify and come in the same class with Noah Grubbs? They're gearing up for that. So
right.
I'm with
so that means, Trev, if it does happen and they do go to the portal, it would mean that maybe Teddy isn't as far along as they hoped he would be.
Right.
It could happen. I mean, that it could happen that way, but it's just, that's not their expectation. They're always ready. They're always going to be looking. Mike Martin and his staff are going to do their due diligence to make sure they know what quarterbacks are out there, because that's just literally doing their job. I mean, it would be a silly thing to just assume something and then not be prepared in case something bad happens, right? It's, what is it? Assume the best, prepare for the worst, right? That's basically what the job of the recruiting operation is at that point in time, is, assume the best, or assume the worst, or assume the best, prepare for the worst. And that's what they'll do. So I don't anticipate that right now, but I also don't want to say, nope, they're done with portal quarterback. They're done. Not going to happen. What if they're not sure of the quarterbacks on the roster, and Malik Washington jumps in the portal and his agent calls up Marcus Freeman and says, hey, my kid would love to play for Mike Denbrock? What are you going to say? No, we've got these unproven kids we're not sure about over here ready to go. You got to keep that option open. But the plan as of right now is that the next quarterback will be someone who is either on the campus already, Teddy Gerard, Noah Grubbs, Blake Hebert in no particular order, or Champ Mons. That would be what I would expect to happen.
Agreed. I'm with you completely. Let's see. Got one in here from Texas Chris. BD, what we got to do to get that background updated to get rid of the scoreboard blocking touchdown Jesus? Need new one to cleanse this season of past ghosts. Donations?
If you want to buy me a new background and send it to me, go for it. I kind of like the background. It's not blocking touchdown Jesus. The thing blocking touchdown Jesus is the light. So unless you want me in a dark place, touchdown Jesus is right there. You can see all of it. And that's a Notre Dame Purdue game. So Notre Dame won that game. So, it's all good, buddy. But if you want to buy me a new one and send it to me, go for it. But my sister got me that also. So it has a little bit of sentimental value as well. I have talked to Angela about trying to take a photo from that kind of angle at one of the games and then like getting one made specifically. So maybe down the road I do that, but I kind of like the backdrop. It's got the band in it doing the ND and I kind of like it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan.
I dig it. Sorry, Chris, but I kind of dig it. Someday.
Right. From Notre Dame Villain. Do you like my new profile picture? And what do you think of the new 5-year rule now that we won't have kids having 8 and 9 years of playing in college?
He's got a leprechaun looking at a bowl of oranges with the Penn State Nittany Lion in the background looking all sad in a cage. That's beautiful. I flipping love that. I love that. Look, the 5-year rule's fine. What bothers me is that so many people abuse the rule that allows us to get to a point where it's no longer an option for kids. Like, there are some players that like Mo Torre should not be getting an 8th year of college football. That's too much. But is there a world in which, and part of that's the COVID stuff too, right? Like, let's be honest, the COVID year is partly why he's getting that extra time. But there's a world in which a kid who is a 6-year senior because he literally lost the majority of 2 full seasons because of legitimate injuries. And you say, hey, look, man, I want this kid to have that opportunity. But there's so many people that abused it that they're just like, screw it. We're going to make this one blanket rule. And unless you go on a faith mission or unless you do this or, for like women's sports, unless you get pregnant, which, you miss the season because you got pregnant. Again, that's fine. Do that. Protect them in those regards. But I think those are all things that I look at, Trev, and say, hey, man, this is one of those things where it's unfortunate that we're in a situation where you have to come to this rule because so many people abused the rule and took advantage of the rule. And that's my frustration with the whole thing is we're overcorrecting rules that were fine to begin with because of 2 things. Number one, people on one side abusing it. And then on the NCAA side, a complete lack of consistency in what they did or didn't approve for a 6th year. Like, what's the reason that you give to allow a guy like Jason Onye to get a 6th year, but then this other kid who's making the same claim doesn't get it? And now, not that a kid that claims it and abused it and lied, but I'm saying, like, we've seen situations where a kid would claim an issue with a parent and he gets that year, and then like the kid, was it Reed Hoffman? Remember the kid that transferred? I think the NC State mom was literally dying of cancer, and he wanted to be closer to home, and they denied him. Like, when you do stuff like that, you can miss my sympathy for now that we're going in this direction. That everyone's trying to sue you for a 6-year. You guys abused the rule. Don't expect the other side not to as well. So there are no good actors here. The only actor here is there were rules in place that I thought made sense, but the inconsistency of enforcing that rule led us to people abusing the rule, and then now we're here. But I also like the idea of getting rid of the red shirt as well. I was against that at first because, again, I'm a traditionalist. I'm a traditionalist. And so part of me was like, hey, I want to keep it the way it was. But the other part of me is like, hey, I kind of like the idea of, hey, you know what? Screw it. If we're going to let him have 4, 5, 6 games and still redshirt, let's just let him play 5 years. And then there's the pressure off of the staff of whether you do or don't redshirt. Like, perfect example. I shared a story that somebody had with me the other day where Luke Tallett had earned a starting job as a true freshman on special teams. And after 4 games, the staff had to say, like, listen, do you want to continue playing? or do you want to, do you want a red shirt? Now, Luke made the decision to keep playing. He's like, I'm helping the team. I want to keep helping the team. A lot of respect for Luke to make that decision, knowing what it meant for his future. So to see a kid like that get that year back, I love. And now you don't have to have that decision anymore. Now it's like, hey, man, you come in as a freshman. I don't want to burn a year for you just playing special teams. Now you don't have to worry about that. Marty Biaggi's like, hey, man, this kid can help us on special teams right now. But we want to save a year for him. Don't have to worry about that anymore. So it's one of those rules that I always have an initial reaction of defending what is traditional. And so that's always going to be a little bit of my go-to, but then I try to think things through. It's like, okay, back off what the traditional aspect, right? Does this make sense in the current landscape we live in? And not the current bad landscape, but just in general, the landscape we live in. I think it does. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I support it now. I've come around. I now support it.
Yeah, I'm with that completely. I mean, I think about what impact could James Flanagan have had as a blocker early on in the season if they weren't trying to maintain some sort of red shirt. It's certain situations that I see like that, that I think could pan out. I think that'll be interesting to track to see if there is any sort of impact.
It would have been interesting last year, Trev, to your point. What would they have done with James Flanagan last year? Would they have ramped him up earlier as a blocker? How would that have impacted Notre Dame's red zone and short yardage offenses if they were willing to, play him and not worry about blowing a year of eligibility? That's a very fair question. You go through the years and you're just like, man, I wish they would have played this guy. I wish they would have played that guy. Would Brian Kelly been more willing to play Kyron Williams in 2019 if he wasn't worried about trying to save a redshirt season? Which, I don't even want to get into the stupidity of redshirting a running back. Like if there was ever going to be a 5-year running back, it was Tony Jones Jr. When you look at his style of play and his NFL projection, the fact that he was sitting behind Josh Adams and then Dexter Williams and but even he was like, look, man, the wear and tear, I just played a full season. I had a great year, and he did have a great year when he was healthy in 2019. Very underrated season. But then it comes down to saying like, okay, but now you wasted a year of that. Well, now you could say, hey, look, we're going to get 4 full years from these kids and then see where we are for a 5th year. I think the challenge is going to be, what do schools do with 5th-year kids who they don't think can play for them anymore? You have to have those honest conversations about, hey, man. And that's why if the rule passes, if the Protect College Sports Act passes, the thing I like about that is they kept in, you can transfer if you graduate. Even if you've already transferred once, you can transfer if you graduate. So, yeah. That is something that I liked. That is something that I liked.
Brian, it's the Friday Free-For-All Mailbag here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We've answered some really, really great questions so far today. Getting us kicked off here in this next segment, we actually have a super chat from our guy, Tyler Evans. Appreciate you, Tyler. Top 5 fan bases that would be insufferable if they win a national championship.
Number 1, Notre Dame. I will be absolutely insufferable if Notre Dame wins a championship. Like, all my friends who cover other teams are going to hate me for a while. I'm not even going to lie to you. Fan base Ohio State's always insufferable when they win. So, I got to keep them in there. Sorry, Ohio State fans. Oh, man. Miami fans would be insufferable because some of them, you'd start asking them questions about like, okay, name me your starting lineup. And they'd be like, because they're those really obnoxious bandwagon Miami fans. So I think Miami probably in there. Somebody just said Penn State is awful. They'd be close to top 5. Yeah, but they're just insufferable in general. They're insufferable whether they're good or bad. They're just kind of insufferable just because. USC fans would be pretty insufferable if they won, and Texas fans. That's probably my top 5 that I can think of right now. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Miami, Texas, and USC. That's probably my top 5.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all in my discussion. Notre Dame would be my number one, and I would be in front leading that charge.
Oh gosh, yes.
Dude,
Yeah.
I will be obnoxious for about 30 days. I'm
Yeah.
just letting everybody know right now on June 26th, because if Notre Dame is hoisting up that trophy on the night of January 25th until February 25th, I will be a ridiculous person. I'm just letting everybody know now. I agree with the rest of your list though, because
Yep.
it'll be a lot of fun. That is absolutely for sure. Got one in here from James Gibbs. If Notre Dame can somehow land Henderson and Parks this year, is this year's class slightly better than last year's class?
So, Trev, that one is something that I was asked the other day. And I'm not sure. I'd have to think through that one because you're comparing a class. So if they get Henderson and Parks, and let's just say they also get Simeon, and let's say they get Roman Igwe, and they sign just a solid top 250 caliber linebacker, you're talking about them having like 23, 24 commits compared to 30 from last year. They both had one specialist. They had a kicker last year, snapper this year. You're talking about like half a starting lineup, more players. What I would say is I would argue that there is more high-level upside in the trenches in this class, and there's more high-level upside in the secondary in last year's class. Running back is very close. Tight end's not as good, but still good. Receiver, it's much smaller class, but the best guy you signed of the last 2 years is in this class. Secondary class is not as good, but still good. D-line class is even better. If you get Braden Parks, which is insane because you'd have two more guys. It's already better now because you have one more guy. So there's a lot to be there would a lot to be kind of back and forth on and say, hey, they're better here, they're not better, they're better there. So that linebacker, you'd be better if actually you said Henderson, so they wouldn't need a mid-level 4-star linebacker. They would just get Igwe, hopefully, and then Henderson. You're better at linebacker, significantly better at linebacker. Last year was better in the secondary. This year, maybe higher upside offensive line. Last year's offensive line, higher floor. Better at tight end last year. More receivers last year. Running back is close. You had two quarterbacks last year compared to one. But I would argue that the one that you got in this class grades out better than the two you got last year. It's back and forth, James, to be honest with you. What I would say is I'm glad that it doesn't matter. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter which one was better because one's not replacing. It's not like you're saying, okay, you guys can only have one of the two classes. The other one is going to leave. You can only have one of them. Which one are you going to keep? That's where it would matter. But I just love the fact that we're even having this discussion, James. I mean, when you think about how good last year's class was, On3 ranked it as their number one class. It was a top 5 class to anyone that doesn't suck at recruiting rankings. 247. And now we're talking about, could this one be better? I think, honestly, James, if they get Roman Igwe and just a good top 250 linebacker down the road, even if they don't get Caden Henderson, I think we're having a conversation about, is this class better than last year's class? I think we're having that conversation. So I just love the fact that it's a question. I'm like, James, buddy, come on. This class isn't anywhere close to last year's class, or vice versa. Like, I love the enthusiasm, James, but let's not homer this thing up, brother. Like that one class is way better than this other class. Like, the fact that I'm not saying that to him, and I'm like, dude, they're better here, but they're better there last year, or whatever. That's what I love. They didn't need another 5-man receiver class. They needed an impact 2-man class, and that's exactly what they got. You know what I mean? Like, they needed a tight end that was more of a traditional Y to complement the two guys they got last year, and that's exactly what they got. So instead of saying, well, who's better, this or that, it's like, dude, they got great compliments. Last year's O-line class, big and physical. This year's O-line class, athletic. Compliments. I love the fact that they're that way. So it's a tough debate, James. And it's also, here's the challenge too. It's hard to emotionally wrap your head around a class that has somebody that right now they're not going to get in Caden Henderson. So it's like, my opinion might change if I could actually live in the reality where that happened. And I don't know if I can even explain that in a way that it makes sense. But it's like, Trev, we have these jokes about if you had $1 billion, what would you do? And you just nonchalantly think all things you do. You're going to be in a different headspace if you actually then got $1 billion and had to figure out what to do with it. You know what I mean? Like, you ever see the movie Brewster's Millions? Great movie with Richard Pryor and John Candy from the 80s. You should watch it. I think you'd like it. But basically, he had to spend a lot of money, and I don't give too much away, and it became stressful. But if you and I sat here and were like, how would we spend $1 billion? It would not be stressful. It'd be like playing a game of MASH when you're a kid. You know, I mean, that's what it'd be like. So it's hard to put yourself in the same headspace of something that may happen compared to where your headspace is when it does happen. And I think that also makes it a little bit challenging to say which one is better, this class that we know or this class that might be. I think that's part of the challenge as well. But I just love the fact that we're in this conversation and even debating which one is better, because it is a legitimate debate.
For sure. From C. Murphy, who do you think will utilize the new fifth-year rule and come back to Notre Dame, not the portal?
Good question. Well, I don't think any of them will go to the portal unless something bad happens. You know, they're injured and Notre Dame's like, yeah, you need to move on. I think it would be, you know, I would expect Drake Bowen to go pro. I don't know what Drake would have to prove in a fifth year, unless again, he gets hurt and maybe misses half a year. I would assume that Jordan Faison will consider going pro. Again, I don't know what else Jordan would be like. What would he be able to prove in his fifth year with an even deeper and older receiving core than he wouldn't be able to prove now? Christian Gray's another one. I don't know what else he would have to prove unless they just wanted to get another year at nickel or something like that. Elijah, the two that I think that I would legitimately consider coming back, and it depends on how the year goes this year from a depth chart standpoint wise, for one of them, that would be Elijah Hughes. I think he's a guy that I think you really think long and hard about. Does he come back? And now part of that is, does everybody on the current roster come back? Did the two transfers come back for senior years? Does Armel Mukum stay? Does none of the main guys transfer? They just lose Jason Onye and some transfers who weren't playing. Then maybe you're like, I don't know if it's best that Elijah stay, or you know what? I mean, I'm saying that's a hypothetical. As of right now, we don't know if any of those younger guys are going to step up, and we know what Elijah Hughes can do. So as of right now, he's one that I think would be very curious to see if he decides to come back for a fifth year. And then the other one's Luke Talich. I think there's a legitimately good chance that Luke comes back as long as, you know, things go well this year, because just wrap your head around this, folks. You're probably not going to have Tay or Adon next year, barring injury. You're probably not going to have them. You're just not. So I think Luke would be one that I would strongly look at. I don't know that the others would, because, like, yeah, you'd love to have another year of Drake Bowen. It's not that I don't want Drake Bowen to come back. I'd love it if Drake Bowen came back in 2027. It's more so if I'm his dad or his advisor, I'm like, buddy, you've been a 3-year starter. What is the NFL possibly going to see next year that they haven't seen already? You know, same with Jordan Faison. It's hard to have those kind of conversations. And, like, you know, if you want to come back now, if you're Marcus Freeman, yeah, come back. All of you come back. You know, we're going to keep this thing rolling. But if you truly care about a kid, you got to be willing to say it's time. We'd love to have you back, but it's time. I'd be willing to bet you. Jeremiah Love had said, you know, I thought about coming back. I'd be willing to bet you that if Jeremiah Love walked into Marcus Freeman's office and said, hey, coach, I think I'm going to come back. If Marcus Freeman is the man that I think he is, I think he'd have two reactions. One is like an excitement of, oh my gosh, we're going to get Jeremiah Love back. But then I think you'd have a conversation that would lead to Marcus Freeman asking Jeremiah Love, why? What's the purpose? What's the reason? And I think the conversation would end with Marcus Freeman saying, hey, listen, buddy, you know you always have a home here at Notre Dame. But if I was your dad, if I was your advisor, I think it's time. That's what I think Marcus Freeman would say, to go. You've got to do what's best for you. You gave us everything you had for 3 years. It's time for you to go look out for you now. I have a feeling that's what Marcus Freeman would have said. Now, the initial reaction was like, oh my God, run it back. We're going to win a natty next year. But when you sit there and talk about it, I think you'd be like, hey, it's time. It's time for you to go. And I think he'd have a similar conversation with guys like Drake, Jordan, guys like that, where it's like, we'd love to have you back. But if anything, you hurt yourself professionally by coming back. More, injury, more film to nitpick. Maybe you don't take another jump. There's maybe your draft class is deeper next year. All those things factor in.
Without a doubt. I'll be interested more so down the road who this impacts, because there's just a small number of people eligible now, and it would be very, very difficult to project that to this year. But I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
From Jeff Fluke, have you debated on visiting high school recruits to watch live?
No. I haven't debated it, and the answer is no. The reason why is, we used to do that. It's just, you lose money doing it. It's just, you're going to spend more money on the cost of travel, the cost of, lodging, food, and all that than you're going to make on whatever videos or articles you write from it. So no. There may be a couple things we do this year, that you do a thing here, do a thing there, but yeah, just not something. Because we don't recover recruiting on a day-to-day basis the way we used to. Because again, it was costing me money. I was spending more money to have recruiting be covered than we were making on articles and shows that covered recruiting. And I had a guy that I thought did a really, really nice job doing recruiting. He did it full time, and we did a lot of those things. It had him go down to the Under Armour All-American game. I can tell you right now, it cost me a lot more money to send Ryan down to the All-American game than we made on all the articles and intel and shows we did from that event. And so from a business standpoint, I like staying in business, and one surefire way to not stay in business is to spend more on things than you make on those productions. So yeah, fair question. But no, we're not. I've thought about it. So I guess he said, would you think about it? Yes, I have thought about it. We're not doing that. Have you debated it? Yes, I did. It was a very quick debate, and we're not doing it.
From Jared Slayball, can the ACC save itself from collapse by continuing to put legit title contenders into the playoffs, or are they just doomed?
I think they can help themselves. Can they save themselves? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I just don't know that, unfortunately, that ACC country really cares a whole lot about football. I think that's the sad reality. So if an individual team is better, they'll care. If Miami was 8-4 last year, or even 9-3 last year, and not a playoff contender, would their TV numbers have been as good as they were? Nope. So I just feel like there's a lot of teams in ACC country that have very loyal followings, but they're small loyal followings in football. And that's why the ACC has the TV contract that they have. That's just the reality. It's the sad reality of it. There's a reason why Pete Bavacqua says when we play these teams on TV, their TV numbers are this percentage higher. There's a reason why only something like 20% of in-conference games are sellouts, which is disgusting. It's gross. I remember watching, Trev, what it was a Miami Duke game a few years ago. It was when Riley Leonard played at Miami, and Brian Smith was there, and he sent me a picture of him being in the stadium during the game. And you'd have thought two small high school football teams were playing there. Like not even big high school teams, that would have maybe filled it up a little bit more. And I'm like, this is an ACC game between two good football teams, two solid football teams. There's nobody there. Notre Dame sells out for Tennessee State. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't have that same passion for football in that region. It's the same reason the Pac-12 went under. Pac-12 had some very good teams over the last 10 years, the final 10 years of their tenure. Heck, they had a team in the championship game in 2023, and they still folded. So that's the sad reality. It's not so much about the title contenders as much as people care. And they'd have to have several contenders for multiple years to really make a dent to where they're going to get a bigger deal. Because at the end of the day, it's not, hey, we had 3 of the 4 Final Four teams in the playoffs. Okay, great. It's wonderful. But if I'm ESPN, I don't care. We already have the rights to that. We're not paying you for that. We're already in that. Here's what your regular season numbers were. Here's how your conference championship game stacked up to the Big Ten and SEC conference championship game. Nobody cared. I don't care that your teams were really good in the playoffs because we're not paying you for how good you are on the field. We're paying you for how many people will watch the product. That's the reality. And the sad reality is there just aren't enough eyes in the ACC country of people that care about football. It's the same problem the Pac-12 had.
Yeah, the ACC is banking on Miami continuing to be kind of a dominant force. Right now, when you go and look at some of the FanDuel odds, the next closest ACC team with title odds is Louisville. And right now, they're behind South Carolina, Penn State, BYU, Auburn, and Missouri, which is not great.
Here's what the ACC would need. They would need Clemson to get back to being kind of what they were in the 2010s. And it doesn't even have to be the two title teams. Even if it's just the Taj Boyd version of Clemson, consistently. And then maybe twice in a decade, they're a team that makes it to the championship game. That's it. Miami's got to get back to being somewhat Miami, which is basically just do what you're doing now. Be 10-2 every year. Some years you make the playoffs, some years you don't. Be that team. But then they'd also need North Carolina to start getting really good. Because I think that's a team that has some TV potential. They need either Virginia or North Carolina. Those are two teams that have TV potential because of where they're located. And you'd need Louisville to be very good. Like, I think those teams, and then, of course, finally, you'd need Florida State to get back to being Florida State, some version of Florida State. If that all happens at once, maybe. I'll have to ask my buddy Jason. I think he's probably listening. But, like, would Pitt all of a sudden become a TV juggernaut if they were good at football? I don't know. I've never seen Pitt be that way, so I don't know. But would they? They're in a big market. Would Boston? I don't think Boston College will all of a sudden become a TV juggernaut. That's a pro town, sadly. That's my fear with Pittsburgh. It's a pro town. I don't know that they necessarily care that much about the Panthers. So where all of a sudden they're drawing huge numbers because their team is really good every year, 10-win team here. I don't know that they would. I don't know. Because if they were that way, I think that they'd have different deals with the ESPN right now, to be honest with you.
Got a question in here from J. Melvin Bryan. I was watching an interview with Mario Cristobal a few weeks ago, and he was talking about his time at FIU. I remember you saying that was a very bad firing. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I don't cover FIU, J. Melvin, so I can't get into particulars, but basically he had done a nice job there. I think he had taken them to a couple bowl games. They're a team that doesn't have any kind of track record of success. And after back-to-back bowl games at Florida International, 7-win season, 8-win season, they went 3-9 and they fired him. It was a dumb decision because he was doing some good things. When you're at a place like FIU, you're going to have the occasional we do well with some veteran teams, and then we lose those guys, we're down, and then we build back up again. And they got rid of him, which I thought was a big mistake. There's not a lot more to it than I can explain to you because I wasn't covering FIU at the time, but that's essentially where we are, Trev, is he had built them up to a point where then they had raised their standard of expectation, and when he failed to meet the standard that he created, they fired him. First year. And a lot of Florida schools make really dumb firing decisions. I want to remind Florida the problems you've had since firing Dan Mullen because he had one bad year. There's a lot of teams that a coach. I remember this with Dan McCartney at Iowa State. He had built Iowa State, or it was Glenn Mason. Maybe it was Glenn Mason. I forget one of those two. I forget which one it was, but he'd done a really nice job building that team up where they were going to bowl games every year, but he couldn't get them over the hump where they were a Big 12 title contender. And so they got rid of him. I'm like, what you don't realize is that's the best your program's going to do. He had you consistently in bowl games. And then you want to get rid of him because he can't take you over the hump. They did the same thing to Bo Pelini at Nebraska. Well, it can't get any worse than this. Yeah, it can. And you've seen that now. So I think, those. So, like, again, you want to get rid of Bo Pelini. I understand that. But you better make darn sure you got somebody better to replace him with. Penn State just made that mistake. Oh, James Franklin, disappointed. He hasn't taken us where he needs to take him. So let's fire him. Well, do you know who we're going to replace him with? No, but we'll figure it out. We're a school that people want to be at. Really? Have you visited your campus? I have. No, it ain't. You know what I mean? Like, and then look what happened. They got embarrassed and then had to settle for Matt Campbell. May end up being a great hire, but don't let him lie to you. He was never who they wanted to be the replacement. They thought they were going to get Matt Rule. That didn't pan out. They thought they were going to get Kalani Sitake, and they realized that he would rather stay in Provo, Utah than come to quote-unquote Happy Valley. So, yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, they looked at Bob Chesney. He was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good." So, yeah, I mean, schools make those kind of decisions all the time. And sometimes coaches become victims of their own success. I'm the one that raised the standard. I didn't live up to that standard. You know?
Sometimes that's how it goes. I guarantee you Penn State is regretting their decision to fire James Franklin. I don't think it'll take long into the 2026 season for them to come to that conclusion, unfortunately for them. Yeah, unfortunately for them. So, got one more question in here from Crash This Train. Who are your top 5 Canadian Notre Dame players of all time?
Oh gosh. I mean, okay. Chase Claypool. I'm looking up who's from Canada. Chase Claypool. I'm just going to name the ones that I know. Chase Claypool, Will Black, Armel Mukam, Devin Houston, and Sean Sevillano, because that's 5 that I can name.
Okay.
In basketball, it's Natalie Ashanwa and Cass Prosper. So there you go. No, in all seriousness, I'd have to actually go look and see who the players from Canada were. And it'll soon it'll be Segun Alexander. He'll be in there soon. But yeah, I don't know that I could name more than the guys that I just listed. They've got more recently, but can you think of anybody besides Chase Claypool that they've had?
No. I mean, the other players that they've gotten from Canada have yet to make their impact felt. So
let me see here. Who are some Notre Dame players from Canada? See if there's any more from the past. No, that's yeah. Yep.
That's the list.
That ain't the answer. It was Notre Dame College. I thought I found a list of it was actually, I guess, a Notre Dame College. Yeah, that's my list for now. Sorry, buddy. I can't off the top of my head, I can't think of some guys from Canada, but as soon as we hang up, I'm gonna be like, oh, what about this guy? What about that guy? I should have thought of that. I should have thought of that. But yeah, that'd be my list. That'd be my list.
I'm with you completely.
Yeah, we'll keep rolling.
From Timecone 57, excuse me. There it goes. From Timecone 57, who has more passing yards in 2026? CJ, Kenny Minchie, or Steve Angeli?
I'm gonna lean towards CJ. If Kenny's healthy, or if CJ's healthy, or gosh, goodness, I'll get to him eventually. There's only 3. If Steve is healthy, and the receivers are maybe a little better than we hope, then it could be him. So, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, my money right now would be on CJ Carr, because I think out of the 3 options, he's going to play the most games. I think he plays 15, 16 games this year. Kenny Minchie's probably going to play 12. Steve Angeli's going to play 12.
There's a world in which in the regular season, CJ's 3rd in passing yards, because you got to think about what the Oregon offense has done in recent years. They're going to be losing in games more. You think of what the Syracuse offense does, and then there's games where CJ throws for 290 in 2 quarters and doesn't play again the rest of the game. You know what I mean? Like, that's possible in 12 games. I agree with Trev's point. Over the course of the season, CJ's going to play probably 2 to 3 more games than those guys. But there's a world in which CJ's 3rd, but those guys have all got to prove that they can start for more than 4 games before I'm ready to say they're going to surpass CJ in yards. But just from a scheme standpoint, I think it's certainly possible that they could throw for more, because CJ's going to not play in a lot of fourth quarters this year. So
yeah, the scheme for Steve puts him in a spot where that wouldn't surprise me. And he was the nation's leader in passing even the week after he got hurt. But like we've said before, I have a lot of questions around the supporting cast that's going to be around him this year compared to last year. So, but I think in some areas I think it'd be pretty close.
Somebody said TJ Jones is originally from Canada. I would imagine that was probably because his dad was playing in the CFL. Not that he's necessarily, I mean, just because you're born in Canada, I don't think makes you Canadian. I mean, it does for the terms of whether you can or can't be president of the United States, but I don't know that I would view that as Canadian. I mean, he was mostly raised in the United States, and he was born to American parents who were just there basically for work, essentially. So
That makes sense.
yeah,
Got,
it's a little bit different.
got one in here from the history expert going off of an earlier question. Who's the best athlete you've ever played with and the best athlete you've ever coached?
Best athlete I've ever played with? That's probably, best athlete I ever played with. That's a good question. I mean, junior high school, I played with a kid named Scott Kramer, who was a great athlete, but we didn't play together in high school because I moved. In high school, best athlete I probably ever played with, college, best athlete. I say the best athlete I ever played with was probably a kid named Myron Dent. He was my running back at Salisbury. It's either him or Tony Ellis. He was another running back I had. Those are probably the two best athletes I ever played with. Best athlete I've ever coached on my team is a kid that I had at Christopher Newport named Rob Rodriguez. Rob was about 5'6", about $160. He got a tryout with the Chiefs at 5'6", about $160. That's how athletic he was. He was a freak athlete, but he was just small. We played in when the game against Salisbury I mentioned. We were playing cover 3, and he was playing deep third, and they threw a ball up the seams that he closed on, dove, and picked off. It was an overthrow. He picked it off. He was unbelievable. We had this kid on our team. What was his name? Chris Cole, something like that. We had his offensive line was about 6'3", 310 pounds. Rob could walk up behind and put his hands on his shoulders and leapfrog him at 5'6". He was absurd athletically. Had like 6 block punts the year we were there. I had a great special teams coordinator, but yeah, it was special, man. He was a special athlete. So give me 1 second here, Trev. We're waiting to see here. Let's go.
Brian, we're back here on the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel to break down an awesome, massive commitment in the 2027 recruiting class. Albert Simeon is just committed to the University of Notre Dame. He did it on SportsCenter Live not 30 seconds ago. Brian, this is an absolutely massive pickup for Notre Dame from Lake Charles High School in Louisiana. He's one of the best overall players in this class.
He is. I mean, I'm tweeting it out now, Trev. This is a big one, man. This is one that has a great recruitment. I can't wait to get into the backstory. That's going to be fun. But you're talking about a big-time football player. You're talking about a kid that is ranked as the number 10 player in the entire country, according to Rivals on 3. You're talking about a kid that on the Irish Breakdown board ranks as a 5-star recruit. You're talking about a kid that you had to go down south and get a big-time player from the south, from the 3.5 hours away, drive hours away from Texas A&M. He's about an hour and 45-minute drive from LSU, and you went down there and got him. That is a big one, and you had to a degree, come from behind and get him. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit, but this is a big-time pickup for Notre Dame, Trev, and they already had a really good offensive line class. This makes it unbelievably good. This is a massive pickup for Notre Dame. Massive pickup for Notre Dame.
Without a doubt. I mean, this is a huge addition to the 2027 class, 6'4", 295-pound elite offensive lineman. You guys know how we break down commitments here. We're going to talk backstory. We're going to talk class impact. Believe me, huge class impact here with Albert Simeon joining the likes of 4 other offensive linemen. We're going to break down his film. Then we're going to talk about what's next for Notre Dame on the recruiting trail, man. Absolutely huge commitment. Brian, let's start at the beginning. What all went into Albert Simeon committing to Notre Dame?
Well, this is actually one of the more entertaining backstories, Trev, because, this is a kid that Notre Dame was on early. They liked him a lot early, but there wasn't like a huge, he had some interest, but there wasn't like this huge thought that, they're going to get him. Like, he had some interest. He had talked to Sean Davis and, liked Notre Dame and was intrigued by it. Mom was always intrigued by Notre Dame because his mom is very much into football. All these schools can coach my son up on football, but what can you do for my son in life? What kind of opportunities are going to wait my son when football's over? And there was always that interest there. And he made a visit, I think in January. Let me go look at his thing. I think he made a visit in January, and there was some interest there. And the more Notre Dame went down and saw him, Trev, I can't even tell you how many times Notre Dame went down and visited him. Joe Rudolph went down and visited him. It actually was in October. It was for a game, and he liked it. He was impressed by it, but it was still A&M, LSU, those type of teams. But as they kept going down there, they went down there again in January to visit him in January. They went down there and saw him again. Every time there was an open window that coach would get on the road, they went down and saw Albert Simeon. I mean, like they made him a major priority. And the more they did that, the more he got intrigued by it. And then he makes his visit in March. And that is when I think the narrative about Albert Simeon became a little bit dated from a national standpoint. We kept hearing for the last 2 months, 3 months really, that it's A&M, A&M, A&M. Notre Dame he likes, but A&M. And then this last week, there was this nonsense about LSU's the team to watch. Literally, there was a national reporter, one of the experts, that was like, LSU's the team to watch. And I called you when I read that, Trev. I literally was laughing when I was reading that to you.
You did call me.
Like, literally. Yeah. And here's what I think people missed. I think people looked at Albert Simeon like a traditional Louisiana recruit. And what they don't understand is he's not in the New Orleans, Baton Rouge area. He's a little bit further out west. But where I think people missed the boat on Albert Simeon is they thought that this was a situation where it was just the mom like Notre Dame. And that she cares about academics, but he's the typical Southern football player, the stereotypical, falsely stereotypical Southern football player that's really just looking for the best football school. And I've been saying for 2 months now, if he makes it to Notre Dame for an official, I really, really like this one for Notre Dame. And you guys know what the two reallys or the two varies like, right? Because what I think people missed is they missed how much Albert liked Notre Dame. And for the last month, Trev, what have I been telling you? I think the kid wants to go to Notre Dame, but he's the concern is the distance. Is he really going to be willing to pull the trigger to go away? So where I think everybody missed the boat on Albert, and I'm talking about missed, everybody, I'm talking about people outside Notre Dame, is I don't think they thought that Notre Dame was the school he liked the most. And I think it was. He didn't want to go to LSU. Family didn't want him at LSU. A&M was a school he liked a lot. Not going to say he didn't. But it was a school that was closer. It was 3.5 hours drive. You can get home after practice on Friday. You can get in the car, in the spring, you get in the car, go home and see your mama. Have a home cooked meal, right? Be home in time for dinner. After class on, Friday in the spring, if there's no football practice, hey, after class, get in the car, I'm home before the sun goes down. See my mama, get a nice home cooked meal, do some laundry, stuff that I used to do when I only lived, 3.5, 4.5 hours away from home when I was in college. He always liked Notre Dame. It was, will he be willing to go away from home? The more he got back, the better chances they got. So that's why the March visit started to move the needle. And the reason that I said that the June visit, if he got to Notre Dame in June, I liked this for Notre Dame because that's when Notre Dame is usually able to kind of finally put to rest the whole distance thing. You've now made this trip 3 times, brother, and it's no problem. It's an easy trip. You can fly right into South Bend. All good. And that visit is the one that put him over the top. And coming out of that visit, we felt this was really, really good place for Notre Dame. Albert had to sit down and make a final decision. They made that earlier in the week, and that's why we felt good about this one. So I think people missed the boat on just how much Albert liked Notre Dame. And I think that the reason they kept thinking it was A&M, A&M, A&M is because I think they thought this was mom likes Notre Dame, but the kid wants to stay down here. I think Albert always wanted to go to Notre Dame for the last 3-4 months. It was just, will he pull the trigger to go away from home? I think the more he got on campus, the more that just moved the needle for Notre Dame. And the big key this weekend was obviously coming up with mom and seeing campus, and he had a support system up with them, and family up with them, and just kind of seeing them all around the coaches. But Notre Dame got all 4 committed players together for the first time on the offensive line, and they spent all weekend hanging around Albert. And more than any position in football, the connection that recruits have with each other on the offensive line is more important than any position on the planet. A receiver may love a quarterback commit, but he's going to go over here because that system throws the ball more. Like, offensive line-wise, if you got that connection, that is the final piece of the puzzle. And getting him around the commits was huge because what Albert was able to see firsthand is, dude, I am a Notre Dame fit. I have a lot in common with these kids. And here's the other thing that Notre Dame did a great job with. They got current players around Albert. And it is like, dude, I'm actually like these. I'm more like these kids than I am like those kids. I care about not just going to school, but doing well in school. I care about getting a great degree. And I think that's why he liked A&M more than LSU. I don't mean any disrespect to LSU. I think that to him, the things he wants to do, I think he viewed A&M as a better academic opportunity for him. But Notre Dame was always that school for him. It just will he go away from home. And this weekend solidified all that for Albert because it was the chance to say, hey, I'm just like these kids. I'm in a place where there's a lot of people like me at Notre Dame. Olu Olubabola is a kid from New Jersey. James Halter's a kid from Pittsburgh. Albert Simeon is a kid from Lake Charles, Louisiana. Jackson Hill is from West Hills, California, and Richie Flanagan is from Green Bay, Wisconsin. How are those kids alike? Because the priorities that they value in life because of how they were raised have them with a lot of things in common of the things they value, the kind of people they are, the things they prioritize. And when you got those 5 kids together and you realize, hey, we have a lot in common. And this place gives us all a chance to do these things together. That was what put it over the top for Notre Dame. And so I just love the fact that they kept hammering, staying consistent with the message. And we're able to convince Albert, no, you are a Notre Dame kid. No matter what anybody else is going to tell you about how they think you may or may not fit up here, because there was a lot of that negative recruiting going on. Oh, you won't fit up there. He realized, no, I do fit up here. Because these kids, I have a lot more in common with these kids. My priorities are a lot more in line with these kids than anybody else. Not that it wouldn't have been great at A&M or great at LSU. It's not that. It's you had 3 great options. Which one's the best fit for me? And Notre Dame was always the best fit for Albert. It wasn't always the best. It's not the best fit for every kid. But for someone like Albert Simeon, it was. It was just getting him to understand that. And that's why those 2 visits were important. But I've been telling you now for 2 months, Trev, that I actually like where Notre Dame is with Albert Simeon. As long as they're willing to stay in the fight and get in there for an official. And they did that. And I'll say this about this too, Trev. Joe Rudolph has answered a giant question that I had about him as a recruiter. He has done a great job at Notre Dame getting northern linemen to come and stay in the north and go to Notre Dame. And he deserves to be commended for that. That's not an easy thing to do, but you should do that at Notre Dame. You should be able to get private school kids from Connecticut to go to Notre Dame. So Will Black, Matty Augustine, with all due respect, you should be able to go to a Catholic school in southeastern PA and get a Grayson McHugh, or go to a really good private school in northern Jersey and get Olu Oluwabola, or a private school kid in Green Bay, Wisconsin, whose dad played at Notre Dame. Like, with all due respect, those are kids you should be able to get. It's not easy, but you should win those battles. Can you go down south and go toe-to-toe with LSU, to A&M, Georgia, teams like that, and say, we're going to get one of the best out of their backyard? That was the one unknown, and he just did that. This is a major win for Joe Rudolph in that regard. Because now the next big-time Southern lineman you want to get on campus, guess who he's going to be talking to when he's on his visit? Albert Simeon. Hey, man, look how well I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a dog here. I'm doing great in the classroom. I'm good. I'm an All-American. Look at what I'm doing. That pathway has now been set for future players as well. That's also why it was important. Not just big win here for Notre Dame, but this is one of those things we talk about. The floodgates kind of coming open, and that's it's kind of getting into class impact. But I just think this is a big win for Joe Rudolph as well, to stay in the fight for this one. It would have been easy to say, hey, man, look, we got 4 kids. We love these 4 kids. We got 6 last year. We're good. And not stay in the fight. But he's like, dude, how do you not stay in the fight for Albert Simeon as a player and as a young man? Like, he's such a perfect fit for us. So I love the fact that Notre Dame stayed in the fight. And I mean, according to my sources, there was never any doubt. There's never any doubt that they would stay in this battle. I mean, I talked to a source who was like, even if Joe Rudolph didn't want to, Mike Denbrock was going to make sure that they did, according to a source that I spoke with. You know what I mean? Because he knows this area. He knows the kind of kid this is, obviously having coached at LSU. So I think this is one that was really big that they were going to, and it was not something you had to talk Joe Rudolph into. I'm just saying, like, even if for some reason Joe Rudolph didn't want to stay in the fight, Mike Denbrock was going to make sure that they did. But I'm really fired up about this one. Really fired up about this one.
As we all should be. I'm with you, man. This is an absolutely huge pickup. We just spent a lot of time talking about what Notre Dame's impact was with Albert Simeon. Let's talk about what Albert Simeon's impact is on Notre Dame's 2027 recruiting class. Some particulars: he's the 21st overall commitment in this class, the 11th offensive player, and he's now the 5th offensive lineman. He joins James Halter, Richie Flanagan, Jackson Hill, and Olu Olubabola. Absolutely huge pickup here, Brian. I mean, his impact on this class is kind of speaks for itself, but trust us, we'll dive into it.
Yes, we are. So first level of class impact is what needs is he meeting? And the first need that he's meeting, Trev, is the fact that you're going beyond your numbers, right? Like, so you got 5 linemen. I mean, if we're being honest, you kind of met the needs from a number standpoint when you got Jackson Hill.
Yeah.
That's why Notre Dame wasn't really worried about when Leighton Von Brandt came back and said, hey, if I'm going to commit, I want this and this. And he was like, I'm good. So, you know, I think that's kind of a part there. It wasn't a need thing. You went after Albert Simeon because you wanted Albert Simeon, not because you needed Albert Simeon from a number standpoint. Where you needed Albert Simeon from a recruiting standpoint and a class impact standpoint is you're always trying to land elite players. And there are some players like, look, we'd love to have him as a 5th guy, and he's a really good player. But are we going beyond our numbers on the roster and financially to bring in a really good football player? Maybe not. Are you doing that for an elite player? Yes, you are. And that's what you're adding to the class. You know, number 10 player in the country, according to Rivals, on 3. I think he's a legitimate top 25 caliber player nationally. I think ESPN has him ranked number 26. That's the wheelhouse right there. 10 to 26, I'm comfortable with. You know what I mean? I don't argue with either ranking. That's because it depends on what else is in the class. And this is a really strong class nationally. That's the kind of player you're getting. And you're also getting a guy, and this is a big part too, Trev. What's the one, if there's a frustration we've had with Joe Rudolph, it's what? Sometimes he moves kids around too much, right? Yeah. Joe Rudolph loves versatility. He's got an NFL heart as an offensive line coach. He wants guys who can play 4 positions. I'm like, coach, you can travel more than 8 in college football, buddy. You don't need to cross-train all these kids. But this is the perfect kid for that, though, Trev, because this is a young man that could literally, and I'm not exaggerating at all. The only thing that would keep him from being able to line up at all 5 spots wherever he can get on the field the fastest is I don't know if he can snap. Athletically, body type, he could play center. He could be an elite guard. And as we'll show in the film, even though he's not the prototype tackle body, he's not the 6'6", 6'7" like Will Black and Matty Augustine and Olu Olubabola and guys like that. He's at least 6'3", in my opinion. But even if he's 6'2.5", so is Isaiah Wynn. But he's got exceptionally long arms. He's a very nimble athlete, and he plays poised. He's got that weird combination of, I want to destroy you, but I'm going to do it patiently. You know, he doesn't play out of control at all. You'll see it on the film. He's athletic. He's nimble. He's got easy change of direction, and he's comfortable in space. I think he could play tackle as well at a very high level. So it's one of those things where you're landing a kid where we're going to play him, whatever gets him on the field the fastest. And that's where you play him. And that's just like Joe Rudolph, kind of like a dream right there. Like, oh my gosh, I got a player that could be an All-American in 5 spots. Thank you. Now you kind of understand why Joe Rudolph liked Albert Simeon so much. You know what I mean? So when you talk about class impact, when you're adding a 5th offensive lineman, great, you got 5 studs. Here's the problem. You have 4 tackles and a guard. Or 4 guards and a tackle. Great, you have 5 guys, but you can't play them together. So who cares? That's like having, look at the elite D-line class this team had. Oh, yeah, cool. Who'd they have? Yeah, they had this guy, this, all top 50 players. Bro, they're all 245-pound DNs. How you going to play them together? You know, like what I love about this class is Albert is the ultimate Swiss Army knife where you could play him wherever. So if you want to have Olu and James Halter tackle and Jackson Hill and Simeon at guard or center, great, do that. If you want to have Jackson Hill and Olu at tackle then you can move him inside. If you think Olu or Jackson Hill and James Halter should all be inside guys, then put him at tackle and let him dominate at tackle. Like, you can fit him in wherever the other players fit best, because he can be really impactful anywhere. I truly believe that. And we've been talking about that for a while, Trev. Like, this kid could play anywhere. Now, I project him to be the best inside, but there's not a big difference in college for him between his projection as a guard and a tackle, where Anthony Knapp is a good tackle in college. I think he could be a tremendous guard. I think Albert can be tremendous at either, slightly better at guard. But he'd be kind of like, for them, he'd be for Notre Dame at tackle what Francis Malinois was for Miami at tackle. An elite power guy that the NFL will then move to guard, like Zach Martin was for Notre Dame. Elite tackle in college that's going to move inside when he gets to the NFL. That's how I could see Albert panning out. But the way they've recruited tackle, I could also see him quickly moving inside and just being an elite interior player at one of the guard or the center spots. Like, that's what you're getting with Albert Simeon, Trev. And that's what gets me really excited about just what he brings to the table, how he fits into the class, how he impacts the class. And then the final piece, you talk about it from a ranking standpoint, Trev. This is a kid that is a number 10 player in the country. This gets you a lot closer to the number one team. This gets you a lot closer to being able to have, to be in the conversation for that number one ranked class. A&M is still the number one team in the industry rankings. But if you look at the On3 rivals, their rankings, not the industry rankings that takes into account everybody, their rankings, this bumps Notre Dame up to number one. They're now the number one ranked recruiting class in the country, according to On3's rivals, their own individual rankings. So again, you got to look at the difference. Last year, USC was number one in the industry ranking, where they took everybody else into account. They were number one on the rivals On3 rankings, just the way they do their recruiting system. And they're now number one there. They're number two on the industry ranking, right behind A&M. So getting a player like him, and they're not done yet in recruiting. And by the way, they're number one with 2 fewer players than number 2 A&M and 4 fewer players than number 3 Oklahoma. So they're absolutely cooking right now. I'm actually going to go see where this puts them in the 247. I don't know why I do this to myself. They're still number 3 on the 247 rankings, because that's because 247 doesn't rank any of the Notre Dame players where they should. They still think Champ Mons is a 3-star recruit, but it is what it is. But yeah, that does. See the composite. They're number 2 in the composite. So Notre Dame right now has 294 points in the 247 composite rankings, just to give you a sample of what they are. Last year, Notre Dame's class with 30 kids had 299 points. Right now, they've got 294, 21 kids in the class. So it's pretty impactful. It's pretty impactful.
Yeah, that ain't bad. That ain't bad at all. I believe you might have already mentioned it. Quick refresher, where is he on your board? Is he 5-star? You said top 25 caliber
5-star
player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. He's the number one offensive lineman commit in the class now. And I would I think my number one rated player in the class. I think he's my only 5-star. I have a lot of 4.5 stars. I have a lot of top 50 guys, but I believe he's the only 5-star. I believe. So, the chat just nailed it, Trevor. Jason Saxon just nailed it. Trevor patiently waiting for film. You got that right.
Keyword patiently, brother, but I am waiting for some film, Brian. I'm ready to pop in this.
No, but this is a big one though, Trev, and we'll get to the film for sure, but it needed to be stated just how big of a win this is. To go down south, get an elite player, get a guy that is that 5-star talent that the big boys in the South wanted. It's a huge win. Huge win. Huge win.
Without a doubt. Absolutely, without a doubt.
So let's dive into the film, Trev. You know what time it is. First thing you guys are going to see on film is Albert has a ridiculous length. That's the first thing you're going to see on film. Those arms are insanely long. Things that you see here, Trev, look at how square he keeps his shoulders. Fundamentally, this is something that I love. Look at that. Working to the second level, keeping those hips, I should say shoulders, keeping those hips square to the line of scrimmage, working up. He's a patient punisher. That's the best way I could describe Albert Simeon. He punishes people. He's a bully on the field, but he plays under control. He doesn't put his head down. He doesn't unblock. So let me fly to the next level out of control, and this linebacker can make me miss. Look at the patience. Get to that guy, and then just the power to just blow this kid up. I love that. Keeps his feet square. And then look what he does. They cut the clip off, but look what he does after he hits that guy. He knocks him down. See, he's going to look for work. He's not standing over the guy taunting him. He's like, okay, I got this guy down. Let me go to the next guy. You know what I mean? Like, took care of him. Let me go get that next one. That's all part of the thing that I love about this kid, Trev. But the biggest thing is we'll see on this film is he is a punisher. He is a dominant point of attack mover.
He plays with the disposition that you want to see out of an offensive lineman. Because of his length, something that you were mentioning, I thought just he was taller than 6'3" but he always looks for work. He does a lot of things well naturally. Plays with pretty good pad level, great base. Yeah, this is such a good pickup.
I gotta give credit. When you actually watch the Lake Charles offensive line, this is a well-coached line. I don't know who's coaching the offensive line at Lake Charles, but like none of these other kids can play at Notre Dame, but you watch them play. They also play with good. He's been schooled in a lot of ways now, especially in the run game. Now, pass game, they don't throw the ball a ton, so he's gonna have to learn that. But like this kid's been coached well, and I think that's why you see he is a natural bender, Trev. Like you mentioned, he's got he's got that natural frame. But this right here, this is good coaching right here. He's going to look at that flat back. You mentioned he keeps that base. This is an example of what Trevor's talking about, keeping that base. He doesn't cross his feet. Like he does this really well. Look at him shoot his hands inside. Look how he keeps his hands tight. A lot of young linemen don't do that. He gets his hands inside on this kid and he should throw that kid to the ground. That kid has no business lining up against Albert Simeon.
Right.
But outside of that, look at the athleticism, the technique, the bend. When we talk about knee benders, look, this is exactly what we're talking about, right? Sinking those hips, sinking those knees, getting to contact. And then the other thing you're going to notice about Albert Simeon is he never stops moving his feet, ever. Like so many young linemen, when they make contact, there's an initial stop, and then they drive their feet again. That's why Harry Heastand did those drive blocking drills every day, because it's a natural tendency. When you hit something square on, you're going to stop. Albert just initially just has that feel for, when I hit you, I'm going to keep working my feet. That never stop moving your feet. That's why I say this kid's been coached well, Trev, and he takes to coaching well, clearly. But I love the pad level. And then the other thing you're going to see is like this right here. This is a patient athlete right here. Let that kid commit and then drive him onto the ground. And then look what he does. He's looking for work, Trev. I got that guy on the ground. Let me go get the next guy on the ground. He's looking for work. I love that. You see that. Look at him at the end. Look at how long his arms are. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, his arm length is absolutely nuts. But patient, destructive blockers, I agree with you wholeheartedly, because it's almost like when the whistle blows, a switch flips.
Yes.
Like in each way. I mean, it's very, very impressive.
Yeah. The other thing I like about him, Trev, as we work through the film, is he's a very athletic young man. You know, he's got really great balance, very light on his feet, right? We talked about that. He's got kind of looking big old feet, right? But he's not lumbering at all. He's very nimble, very good balance, very good change of direction ability. That's the thing I think that maybe you can miss when you're first watching the film, because he's so long and so dominant. He's a very athletic young man too. And that's why I say I think he could play tackle. Now, I don't know he's going to end up a tackle. I said I like him inside, but there's no doubt this kid could move inside and play tackle. Look at this punishing block right here. And this is about as high as you're going to see him come off the line. This is a bad snap for him from a pad level standpoint. This is normal for a lot of kids at his age. But he's so strong, he keeps moving his feet. He's able to drive that guy off the line. But he's a really nimble athlete. His change of direction athleticism is really impressive. His ability to stay on the ground or stay off the ground is real, as he falls forward on the one clip where I'm saying that. But his ability overall to stay up, stay off the ground, the balance, the agility is really outstanding.
Talk about balance, agility. Can you go back
to this one or the play before?
This play. He gets his knees taken out, but because he's an agile athlete, he's light on his feet. They try to cut him. They hold him borderline. He's able to get out, and he looks for work immediately.
They're trying to cut an offensive lineman. If that tells you anything about Albert Simeon, they're trying to take an offensive lineman out. But to your point, Trevi, that's something that Charlie Partridge is like, hey, can we get some defensive linemen to get off cut blocks that way? That'd be great.
Keeps the shoulder square, awesome. Everything.
Yeah. The keeping the hips and the shoulder square to the line of scrimmage is something I absolutely love about this kid. And it shows that this young man has been coached well, and he takes to coaching well. Because that's what you see from Notre Dame linemen. They want to turn into the block. How many times have we complained about that? You can't turn into the block, and you're not going to be able to pick up the twist. For Albert, he's not going to turn into you until it's ready to drive you. That's when he turns, like right there. Right? Look at him. Keep the base square, drive block. Then when the kid goes inside, okay, now I'm going to turn you because you've declared where you're going, and I'm going to take you there. But I love how he keeps his feet and hips, shoulders and hips square to the line of scrimmage. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Now here, I think he could do a little better job on the reach here, but watch how he recovers. He's able to just kind of bully this guy outside and put him on the ground. But that's one where you're going to want to see a little bit better reach step. You can see that left foot kind of go up and down, so he's not able to actually get that reach. Okay, so technically this is not a good clip. But he's so physical, he can bury that guy. And when you've got backs like Notre Dame has, as long as you can keep your hands on that guy and put him on the ground, they're going to make you right with their cut, as long as you can stay engaged. And he does a great job of that. But yeah, he's a bully on the field, and you guys know on the field I love bullies. Love bullies on the field. Off the field, can't stand him. But he's not that. He's a great fit at Notre Dame off the field. But yeah, there's so much to like about this kid, Trev. He's a truly elite talent, but he is a punishing athlete. He can move. He's got length. He plays a great pad level. He's well coached. I mean, like literally, other than him being, like we talked about it before, an inch taller, maybe, like there's nothing that I don't love about this kid's game. He has got tremendous talent. This is the best junior film for Notre Dame offensive line pickup I've been in a while. Like Will Black senior film was elite. You know, Gerby senior film was elite. Charles Jagasol senior film was elite. None of them have the junior film that he has. Look at that. Look at the patience and the base, the angle, upfield shoulder, right? Stay on that upfield shoulder. That's perfect technique, right? Keep your base, keep your pads low. Don't go lunging at the guy. Upfield shoulder, because if this guy's going to run underneath you, fine. You can't let him get over top of you. This is a great job. And look how tight his hands are on that guy when he engages, Trev. He's got his hands up in the guy's chest, like right here. He's got his other hand tight. Really nice hand placement there. That's textbook right there. That's a great clip. And by the way, he's incredibly athletic and physical. But just technically, that's why a lot of guys aren't 5 stars as juniors, Trev, because their technique grade is way low. The reason he's a 5-star and some of these other guys weren't is because his technique is already really good. Yeah. Ooh, this is one of my favorite clips. This is when you see him come off and I'm going to blow you up. So why is he doing it here and not other clips? Well, in this instance, they're playing a really tight technique inside of him. There's actually no one over him on the line. That guy's in the 3 technique, basically. So Albert knows I got to get down in a hurry and get to this guy. And he does, and just whops the guy. Because he's obviously clearly working a backside block here. He's trying to reach a guy that's playing basically a 3 technique. And he just destroys him. This is one of those ones where you see him really come off, and that explosiveness off the ball is really impressive.
Yeah,
truly talent.
Without a doubt. I mean, there's nothing on this film that I'm looking at, and it's like, yeah, we see the potential where he projects to where he's going to be at Notre Dame, but, lots of areas of improvement. He does a lot of things very technically well, which is impressive. And
on top of being an elite talent. I mean, look what they're trying to do here, this junk front. But look at the patience to let it develop, not just from him, but the whole line. That's why I say it's a well-coached line. They're trying to get you out of your assignment here. They're trying to say, we're going to mess up your count. You're not going to know who the mic call is, all that stuff. But the whole line just comes off with patience, staying square, and then he gets up and he just booms him. I mean, this is I love it, because this is what a kid can come in and play for you right now, because he's coached well, hits the kid, keeps working, keeps moving his feet. There's so much to like here. I don't know who the O-line coach is at Lake Charles, but that guy deserves a raise. This is one of the better coached offensive lines I've seen. He does a really good job. Here's a nice little change of direction here. You see the You see the little bit of an overset here, right, Trev? Nice kick slide, decent quickness out of his stance. Guy tries an inside move, and he just takes him right inside where he wants to go, opens up that lane for the quarterback. We don't see a ton of pass blocking on film. There's a little bit more on game film. There's not a lot in his highlights. There's more on game film. That's an area where I think he will need a little bit of work, but he has a good idea of what he's doing. He just doesn't do it as much as the other one.
Yeah, when you pop in his game film, you see his comfortability in space for sure. Mm-hmm. I'm with you completely. This is an exceptional pickup.
He is. Just to have a little bit of fun before we wrap this up, Trev. His sophomore film is also pretty good too. I don't know if you've seen that or not yet, but yeah, I'll just let that kind of play as we kind of put a little bit of a bow on this. But this is him as a sophomore. So we'll just let this run as Trev and I continue to talk and a few more pass clips on this one too. But Trev, when you look, this is now you see why I wanted you to see the sophomore clip, right? Sophomore.
I've seen it. Believe me.
Yeah, this is it right here. I love this. I love this first clip. But Trev, this is a big time commitment, man. This is a big time football player. This is the kind of kid that you like, man. You build a line around, and when you're talking about adding him to a class that already has James Holter, that already has Olu Olubabola, that already has Richie Flanagan, that already has Jackson Hill. You're talking about, I mean, now you've got an offensive line class that's the NBA college football. There are other teams that have great 1-2 punches, right? There's A&M with Mark Matthews and Kennedy Brown. That's a great 1-2 punch. But now that you have Albert Simeon, you now have a 1-2 punch, in my opinion, that can match that. But you also have James Holter, Richie Flanagan, and Jackson Hill. You've put together a great 5-man class, and you followed up a great 6-man class from last year. So when you talk about maintaining O-line, you look at that clip right there. Good Lord. You're talking about, this is how you do it. It's with kids like this. And that's what has me excited about what Albert Simeon brings to the table. This is a big time pickup. I think you guys can kind of sense in my voice that I'm really fired up about this one because I think you guys are seeing why. And I also think this kid is such a great fit at Notre Dame. He really is. And the fact that he was willing to take that chance and go away from home and go away from mom and go away from the support system to go to a place like Notre Dame, I love that for him because he will fit in so well at Notre Dame. And of course, as a football player, he's an elite talent. He's an absolute elite talent. And it's always nice to go down south and beat the SEC for a Southern kid. I mean, let's just be honest about that. He worked 2 guys there. Did you guys see that? He put 2 guys in the ground on this play. There's one, and then he goes looking for more, and that poor DB gets wrecked. You can see the shadow hit the ground at the end of the play. It's a beautiful thing. So, yes, love it.
Brian, let's talk about what's next for Notre Dame on the recruiting trail. Some closing yet to be done, but this class is starting to come to the point where it's nearing the finish line, and then it's getting everybody to National Signing Day.
Well, I mean, offensive line-wise, Trev, you're done in 2027, obviously. And I think what you're at now, as long as you can keep the guys that you have on your roster here and, don't have a bunch of guys jump in the portal, in 28, you're basically going for a smaller class that's just going to be dudes, essentially what you're looking for. But in 2027, since you are done the offensive line, it's okay, can you close on the last few remaining targets? And so here's where they're at on the board. Number 2, the 2 knowns. What are the 2 knowns? We'll start up front, work our way back. Braden Parks, a defensive tackle. I wrote an article at Irish Breakdown yesterday on the premium board where I stated the case where Braden Parks is not icing on the cake. Braden Parks is still a must-get player for Notre Dame, and I explained why. They just don't have a lot of guys like him on the roster. And there's a lot of other reasons, but he's still a must-get for me. Then you're at linebacker. And that's really the big unknown in the class. And right now, Roman Igwebuike is a kid. I'm sorry that I struggle to say his name, but he's a player that obviously I think Notre Dame's in a great place for. He's going to commit somewhere on July 11th. Notre Dame, Tennessee, Clemson, the top schools. I like where Notre Dame is at. Got to close on him. And then you got to figure out something else at linebacker. I think what we're going to see is Notre Dame is going to stay on Caden Henderson. They're going to stay on Noah Glover. They're going to stay on some of the other linebackers they like. monitor how a couple other kids do their senior years and try to flip somebody down the road, get some kids on campus for official visits in the fall is what I think we'll see Notre Dame do. Will they have success there? That I don't know. But that's the plan as of now. And then like maybe there's a late bloomer. There's a kid that kind of comes out of nowhere, maybe a Teddy Rizak type of late bloomer that you fall in love with the athleticism and things like that. That could be a route they go to. But linebacker's the one big unknown. And I think they're going to also keep their eyes out for another DB. I don't think it's a must. I think they're okay with the 4 they got because John Gay can play multiple positions. But I do think that you'll see them kind of keep an eye on Gavin Williams and keep an eye on a couple guys. Greedy James is not going to come to Notre Dame. That's not going to happen. He's down to LSU in Texas. He won't be picking Notre Dame. But I think they're going to also keep their eye on there. But it's with where they are now with the success they've had in the portal, they don't have to panic and go get a guy just to fill a need. From a number standpoint, they're going to look for the right players. And if they don't get them, you can go to the portal and fill some of those needs and then focus on 28. But you're really down to Braden Parks, Roman Igwe-Buike, and figuring something else out at linebacker. That's really where Notre Dame is at now to close this thing out. And it's a good place to be. And so that's why you're seeing Notre Dame send out so many offers in the last month to 28 kids and 29 kids. Because, like, dude, we're kind of already know who's the board in 28, 7, and we're pretty much close to being done. Now we can start turning our attention to having another great class in 2028. And I hope it's a smaller class because it's a smaller class. That means most of the 26 and 27 kids are staying, which is a good thing.
Without a doubt. Absolutely, without a doubt. Absolutely huge pickup with Albert Simeon in this class, for sure. Brian, we are back now with the Friday Free-For-All Mailbag on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We just got done breaking down the commitment of Albert Simeon, an elite offensive lineman in this class. But now we are back. The Friday Free-For-All Mailbag getting us kicked off here. We have a super chat actually from Steve Rolfe, who is a follow-up from Albert Simeon's commitment. Great get. Appreciate the super chat, Steve. Great get. Just want to thank IB for the nice podcast to listen to at nights when driving from city to city. Have a great weekend.
Well, we're glad that we could be there for you, my man. Very happy about that. And we appreciate you. We appreciate your support, number one, with the super chat, but then also that you listen to us. We really do appreciate that. Because I know super chats help us and being premium members help us, but you guys just listening helps us, especially if you're listening on the podcast instead of like the YouTube channel. But if you're listening on the podcast, that really helps us because that's our 2 top revenue streams at Irish Breakdown are the actual podcast and the message board. Those are our 2 top revenue streams. The YouTube channel is 3rd for us. So it's very helpful. So we appreciate you very, very much, my man. Very, very much.
From Spencer, a resident Miami fan in the chat. Thoughts on the release of the new EA Sports ratings? I personally trashed it when I saw how much glazing there is for Indiana. They had Burnham 7 points ahead of Bryce Young due to the SIG bump. Shake my head.
I don't think that has anything to do with the SIG bump. I think that has to do with the they watched film bump. I mean, Josh Burnham's a dude. So, I mean, I don't know about 7 points ahead of Bryce Young, but he should be ranked ahead of Bryce Young. I mean, he started the last few games last year. Josh Burnham's a dude. Outside of that, Trev, I honestly haven't looked at him yet, other than there was a post on the message board. They had Julian saying and Dante Moore had a CJ Carr. Okay. No, that's fine. I haven't looked at him, Spencer, so I guess I'll look at him if I buy the game, but I've been so busy with all this stuff and the magazine that we're putting out this year. For those who don't know, I announced on the Irish Breakdown last week, we're going to have a Notre Dame 2026 season preview magazine, digital magazine that we're going to have. It's for premium members only. This year we'll eventually sell it, but for now it's going to be to premium members only. So we've been kind of busy with that. I honestly haven't had a chance to look at it, Spencer, but there are some players that I'm very curious to see where they are for Notre Dame. And I heard that like neither Leonard Moore nor Jeremiah Smith are 99s. It's like, why even have a 99 if you're not going to give guys like that a 99? Like returning unanimous All-Americans. Like, what's the point of even having a 99 if you're not going to give a 99?
Some of the more like individual rankings, I think, are a little bit more weird. Like Leonard Moore is not the fastest player in Notre Dame secondary. It's Kari Adams. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. They ranked Jaden Maeva ahead of Arch Manning, which I thought is just a real bad lapse of.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. I thought that was pretty bad.
That USC hype, boy, that'll get you. That'll get you.
Yes, it absolutely sure will. All right, let's see here. We got one in here from Moneybag Jake 13. What's your opinion on this whole Matt Miller situation?
Trevor, are you familiar with a Matt Miller situation?
No.
Jake, if you don't mind filling us in the chat what that's about. Trev, don't put that one away yet, but I don't know what Matt Miller situation that you're referring to. Sorry about that, Jake, but I'm not sure what you're talking about.
From Archie Ingram, why is Alabama facing so many recruiting challenges? Is it due to a lack of NIL funding or ineffective recruiting staff?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is there's not a lot of positive vibes around Alabama right now. Number one, they kind of got embarrassed late in the season, and so sort of the bloom is off the rose a little bit. I think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what Alabama's recruiting goals were this year by the people saying that their recruiting class is really struggling. They weren't trying to have a big recruiting class. They've had some legitimate misses, but I think, are they doing well? No, not really. Are they doing as bad as people are acting like they're doing? No, I don't think so, because they loaded up on portal kids last year. They had a pretty decent sized recruiting class last year. That was a top 10 class. I don't know that they really were going to have a lot of kids in this class. And they landed a pretty good quarterback, and they just landed a kid, I think, earlier today. I thought I saw they got a kid earlier today to come in. I think, I don't even want to guess. But I think an edge today. They picked up a kid yesterday. Like, they're going to be fine. It's Bama. But why isn't Alabama and Georgia recruiting as well as they normally do? Two reasons. One is they tend to be, let's close late and flip some kids. Number two is, guys, in this NIL world, we've told you this for years. Like, and I'm not saying this towards you, Archie. It's just like, and I'm not even saying like, oh, why aren't you listening? I'm just saying, like, this is what we're seeing come true, where once paying players became legal and it was no longer about 50,000 can get you a 5-star. Now it's 50,000 doesn't even get you a visit from a 5-star in some cases. I'm being exaggerating a little bit, where you could pay 10 grand to a kid's influencer back in the day and you were going to get that kid. I mean, we've seen that happen to Notre Dame very recently, where they find the uncle or the cousin or the coach or whoever that they give 10, 15, 20,000 to and get a kid. It's a lot easier to spend that kind of money. But when now the full weight of Notre Dame's like ability to raise money gets thrown into the football program compared to your ability to at Georgia or Alabama to raise money, and the full fort of your fundraising ability and donation ability gets put to the test where it's legal, you're going to lose to Notre Dame. You're going to lose to Ohio State. You're going to lose to Michigan. You're going to lose to those schools that are just better schools, or at least from a standpoint of they raise more money. They have a lot more donors that can give the kind of resources they need. And they're also much smaller states. I mean, look, let's, I love to use the Electoral College, Trev. I'm a big fan of using that to make a point, and when you look at, for example, Ohio, it's 17 electoral votes, right? Actually, it'll be 17 the next one. I think it was 18 this last election. 19 in Pennsylvania, 11 in Indiana. And we consider Indiana the smallest Midwestern state of the power football states. Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Illinois is 19 electoral votes. Ohio was 18 in the most recent. I think Pennsylvania was 19 in the most recent one, right? Michigan's 15. Well, then you look down to Mississippi's 6, Alabama's 9, Louisiana's 8. To have a 3 to 10 difference in electoral votes is a big difference in population, which means more people to spend money, more state revenue, more donors, more grads, and those type of things that can spend money in their smaller states. Georgia's getting bigger, but Georgia's still just 16. They're smaller than Ohio. They're smaller than Pennsylvania. They're about the same size as Michigan. So that's just a big reason why you're seeing that, is that there's just not as much money flowing into these states and into these state schools as there was. Actually, it's the same amount of money, but now it's like that money has to be spent in a different way and going in different directions. You're just not going to have the same kind of revenue stream to give to players where 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand went a long way. And you could get a 5-star with 30, 40 grand if he was buyable. And that's what it comes down to. Because here's an example. I won't say who it was, but a number of years ago, there was a recruit that liked Notre Dame a lot. I think Ohio State was another school he's looking at. And Ohio State does. I've never known Ohio State to pay high school kids. I've never heard that accusation. Where Ohio State has done things shady, it's once you get on campus, they hook you up with the car dealership, they hook you up with the free this, they hook you up with the free that. But it wasn't stuff to get you, pay you. Here's 50 grand, come play at Ohio State. I never heard that. I'm not saying it happened. I never heard that. And I kind of think that I would have heard that if it was rampant. I think I would have heard that. Maybe I'm naive, but I feel like I would have heard that. So this kid was looking at Notre Dame, Ohio State, and a couple other schools, but he was from a real poor family, and he's one of those kids that there wasn't a dad in the picture, and the kid felt an obligation. I don't know if he was the oldest kid or not, but he was real tight with his mom, and there was a tough financial situation, and so when this school swoops in with 50 grand under the table, what's that kid going to do? I can get $50,000 right now to help my mom keep her home and keep the lights on and stuff like that. Or I can go to Notre Dame, 12 hours away from mom. You know what I mean? Like that would matter to a kid. And I understand that. I've been poor. I've been in a situation where if somebody would have handed me $50,000 just to go play football for them, and I could give that to my mom and dad and help them move into a better place. You don't think I would have strongly considered that at 17, 18 years old? I bet you I would have. But now it's like, okay, you're offering 350. Notre Dame's offering 300. That 50 grand doesn't mean a whole lot anymore because I can still give my mom 300 and go play at Notre Dame and get a great degree or go to Ohio State. That's real. That's real because 50 grand means a lot when it's between 0 and 50. You give me nothing, or I can give my mom 50 grand, which is more than she made last year. But now it's like, well, that 50 grand, when we're talking 4 to 450 or 5 to 550 or 9 to 950, doesn't mean a whole lot. But it hurts you a lot more because that giving that kid 450 is going to hurt me a lot more than Notre Dame giving that kid 450 because of how much resources they have. So I think all those things play into why these Southern schools are struggling to keep some of these kids from going up north because they just can't spend $10,000 on Uncle Curly anymore to get that kid. Because as Fred Akers said on The Best That Never Was, the show, have you seen that one, the 30 for 30 on Marcus Dupree, Trev? You got to watch it. It's one of my favorite 30 for 30s. Marcus Dupree was a monster running back in the 80s. You're going to love that one. You're like, this guy should have been a stud. And they're interviewing, he literally had an Uncle Curly, and who there's some accusations of some shadiness going on, but Fred Akers like, there's always an Uncle Curly. And it's so true because he coached the Texas at the time. There's always that uncle you can give 10 grand to or whatever that has an influence over a kid. And now it's like you give Uncle Curly $10,000, the kid's gonna be like, and sorry, Unc. It doesn't matter as much anymore. There's still some of that. I mean, that still happens, but it doesn't happen like it used to. And those schools just don't have the resources to compete the way that they did to buy that many players and stash that many players. So I think that's one of those things that's hurting them. But I also think to a degree the Alabama stuff is overblown just a little bit. Let's see where Alabama is in December. That's when I'll be able to evaluate whether they are or are not struggling.
Yeah, I agree. It's too early, I think, to write the obit for them. They'll have time to close for sure. From Time Cone, do we have any edges who could become outstanding will linebackers if we need it more for 2027?
No, not Logan Thomas. I mean, no, you're not going to move those guys to will linebacker. What you would do, Time Cone, is if you do get into a situation where after the season Notre Dame is worried about their depth at will, which I mean could be a thing. It could be a real thing. Let's say that Drake, Jalen have to go pro or decide to go pro. I guess, and Drake doesn't have to now. Jay Nosbury goes pro, Kingston goes pro, and one of the non-freshman transfers, Teddy Rizak, misses his brother Anthony, transfers to South Dakota State, and Ko Okia misses surfing, so he transfers back to Hawaii. Now you're like, okay, we're in a bad spot. Then that's when you would need to strongly consider another will. They would just go to the portal. That's what they would do, honestly. I'm not saying that there's not a world where that might not happen. I used ridiculous examples with Teddy Rizek and Ko Okia, and I probably shouldn't have used specific examples because I've heard nothing about them transferring. I was just trying to make a point of, harmless examples, but you just go to the portal at that point. They wouldn't need to move somebody like that because there's nobody at end. Like, could Logan Thomas play Will? I mean, I could play it. I don't know how good he'd be at it. I don't know if that's the guy you want to line up at Will because he's still small. I mean, even at 215 pounds, he's about the same size as Luke Talich. Like, is he going to now all of a sudden become a thumper at Will linebacker? Is that going to be his game? I don't think so. So you just go to the portal, and that's what you do.
Yeah, agreed. It would be portal. I don't think that they would change anybody's position.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you.
Yep.
From ICO5, hey, IB, this Sunday I turned 21 years old. Just wanted to say I appreciate all that you guys do. Will you guys be doing a tailgate for the Michigan State game? Would love to meet you guys in person.
Well, happy early birthday, my dude. 21 years old. I still remember when I was 21 years old. I went to Red Lobster with my parents, and I had a non-virgin strawberry daiquiri because I liked strawberry daiquiris when I was a kid. I'd get them at Red Lobster, and then I realized non-virgin strawberry daiquiris taste like booty. So I was like, yep, not doing that again. But that was my I'm now 21 experience. And I was like, I'm good. Now I know. Now I remember why I don't drink alcohol. It burns and it doesn't taste good. But Michigan State game, as of now, the plan is we will have a tailgate. So my parents are planning right now to come in town for the Rice game, and we'll have like a morning tailgate that morning, smaller, hang out, and then we will also, they're going to stay in town that week, and then they're going to do a tailgate for Michigan State as well. So we plan on doing back-to-back on the first two home games. And then we'll also, our plan as of right now, again, my parents are in their 70s, so like they may decide they can't do it at some point in time. But the plan is to do that. And then, of course, the plan is also to have one for the Miami game as well.
Good deal. Happy birthday, man. 21's fun. Just don't drive anywhere, Uber, wherever, and make sure you have good friends with you. That's my advice.
Yep.
From Jay Melvin, Brian, did Brian Kelly truly not realize he was sitting on a gold mine at both Notre Dame and LSU? Do you believe Brian Kelly is one of the biggest underachievers in college football history?
Now that's going a little too far. I would say there's been a lot of guys that have been worse than Brian Kelly. Certainly one of the did the most with or did the least with most at Notre Dame, certainly. Yeah. But I don't think I think he thought he was I think he knew he was sitting on a gold mine at LSU. But that was a bad fit for him, and he had developed such a lazy work ethic at Notre Dame that I think he thought. I truly believe that a big part of Brian Kelly really didn't think he could win at Notre Dame, because I think he convinced himself that, like, hey, I do work hard. I do this. I don't think he thought he was lazy. I don't think he thought he spent too much time playing golf. I don't think he thought he didn't have good relationships with the players. I think in his head, he thinks he had great relationships with most of his players. I think he truly believes that. Because his narcissists are that way. If they knew they were a narcissist, then they probably wouldn't do the things that they do. They don't see it that way. He doesn't see it that way. I don't think he realized. I think he genuinely thought Notre Dame was keeping him from winning. I genuinely think that. I think that's why he left to go to LSU. I think he thought that I've done all I can here. This place is holding me back. I think he truly believed that. I think it was misguided. I think it was kind of a justification in his own head to justify the things he wanted to do and the way he wanted to act and the work he wanted to put in. But I think he genuinely convinced himself of that. I do. So I don't think he realized the gold mine he was sitting on in Notre Dame. I don't.
No, he definitely did not.
I think Notre Dame was always a stepping stone for him. It's just that he could never find the right place to step to. He wasn't the coach that he wasn't getting the attention that he thought he was going to get by being at Notre Dame. And I think over time, I think he became a little bitter about it. And just like, I don't think he liked Notre Dame. That's why I think he treated alums so poorly. You know, like, yeah. No, I answer your question. No, I don't think he did at Notre Dame. I do think he thought I do think he realized what he had at LSU. I didn't think he realized how hard. I generally think Brian Kelly looked at Ed Orgeron and Les Miles winning a title and said, this is going to be freaking easy. I really believe that, Trev. I think he thought it was going to be easy. I can just roll the ball out and we're going to have the athletes because I'm that good of a coach. I mean, look what I did at Notre Dame. I think he genuinely believed that.
Oh, I absolutely could see that. He's a transactional coach. I mean, that's who he is, and he'll do anything to prop himself up and make sure that there's always a scapegoat. which honestly is why I'm a firm believer that I think Brian Kelly would have panned out better in the NFL than in college because he wouldn't have had to do a lot of the things you have to do to work hard at the collegiate level. Your teams are made for you in the NFL. If something is bad, he's like, yeah, his front office is not supporting me, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah.
I think if he would have treated NFL players the way he treated college players, he'd got punched in the face. I'm dead serious. He would have had to change. But I honestly think he would have. I don't think he would have tried to treat NFL players the same way he treated NFL players. NFL players don't care if you're a dick. As long as you pay them and put them on the field. I don't think they care about that. It's some of the other stuff, the way that he would talk to players and coaches, I think that would have got him. But I don't know that he would have done that in the NFL. But we'll see. And plus, he'd had a whole offseason to get all his golfing out of the way. Maybe he would have paid more attention to football since he didn't have to recruit.
True.
We had a couple super chats here pop up here, Trev. Let's get to some of those right there. We got one from Jari Z Bear.
What is your favorite non-Notre Dame college football tradition? I like the Iowa wave to the Children's Hospital. Love IB. That's
a pretty awesome one. That's a pretty cool one. I don't know that that's my favorite because honestly, I just became aware of it recently. I don't even know how long they've been doing it. Like maybe the last 7-8 years is when I became aware of it. I don't know how long that's been going on. Non-Notre Dame. I've said this before. The coolest one for me, because I saw it live, was Chief Osceola throwing the spear down at midfield at Florida State.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's – I mean, I don't know what your feeling is of that, Trev, and I always thought it was kind of cool on TV, but whatever. But when you see that thing live, you're like – and you feel the electricity in the stadium and just the place go nuts when he slams that thing down, and it's like, dude, this is freaking awesome. This is really cool. Plus, I think horses are just absolutely amazing creatures. I mean, they are. And so just seeing it live and in person, you're just like, dude, this is freaking awesome. This is really cool. You know, so that's probably my favorite. Like and I'd already seen like the sword thing at midfield at USC, and I thought, whatever, you know, but there's something about that flaming spear on the horse. And you're like, dude, this is so awesome. You know, I can't even lie. This is so cool. That's probably my favorite non-Notre Dame tradition, to be honest with you. Like the dotting of the I, I've seen that. It's like, okay. You see it once, you're like, oh, that's cool. And then after that, you're like, they still do this? You know, it's kind of
shoot. I saw it once and didn't even think it was cool. I was like, okay, yeah, that's something that you could do. Yeah. For me, I like when the crowd is involved. Like that's why I think the Florida State thing is so cool. That's why I think the USC thing is really overrated. I think it's cool. I also hate USC. Have not been shy around that fact, but there's no involvement from the crowd. That's what I like about the college football atmosphere is the involvement of the crowd. That's what I think makes Florida State so cool. That's why I like the Iowa Children's Hospital thing. That's why I like Rocky Top. That's why I like a lot of that stuff when the crowd gets into it. So those would probably be some of mine.
I know that I've said this. I know that Enter the Sandman is really cool on TV. It's not cool in person, I didn't think. It just takes forever. It's like they play it for so long. The other one that I thought was kind of cool was where we sit at Clemson, and I know you said you didn't like it, but where we sat at Clemson, I thought the running down the hill between the student section was pretty cool in person. I thought that was pretty cool. But I saw it from the side, so it has a very different visual feel from the side, I would imagine, than it did from somewhere else. But that was a cool one too.
When you mean the side, like you were like on one of the sides of the stadium?
Yeah, so like where the press box is, we're like looking. So like we're on the side of the hill, and we're like off to the side. So like we're literally looking through one student section to the hill, and then the other student section behind it. So it's a different feel than like being on the opposite side, where we're kind of looking down the field at it, right? So it's like where Notre Dame comes out of the tunnel. It'd be like sitting in sort of the corner-ish, the far side of the press box over there, but lower. It'd be kind of like that kind of angle. So from there, it looked really cool because you see him get out of the bus, you see him go down, and it was pretty cool where we saw it, where I sat.
Yeah, I think the overall environment, like the type of game would dictate, I think, in my opinion, how cool that would be. Because I went in 2018 when they played Louisville for like a noon game, and it was fine. But like I could see that at nighttime being nuts. You know, or something like that, or like if the level of opponent was not a really, really, really bad Louisville team, I could see it being cool.
Yeah, I see that. I can see that. And then, yeah, you didn't get, like you said, 2018, so it was like the year after Lamar. So if you'd have maybe seen it for the Lamar game, that might have been a little bit more electric because that was what was it? Wasn't the game in Clemson just a crazy great game they played in 16, right? It was him and Deshaun going back and forth.
Yeah, that was 16.
That was a great game.
Super chat from Charlie Weiss, last belt loop. Appreciate you. If Reggie Bush was a current high schooler, what chance do you think Freeman and Sider have of getting him? Also, how different would Notre Dame history be if Freeman was the current coach but took over after Weiss?
So, like, if he was the current version of himself back then, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't. Let me just do the Reggie Bush one first. I think Notre Dame would have a very good chance to get Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush liked Notre Dame coming to high school. He visited Notre Dame, I believe. But they weren't a very good program, and there was no way he was going to go to Notre Dame at the time. Facilities were way behind everybody else. The head coach wasn't a worker. They were coming off a very good year. He was a freshman in 03, so he would have been there during the 02 season. He'd watch them, do well, but he also would have watched them get smacked by USC at the end of the year. And USC was starting to build something special with Pete. If Notre Dame would have been like the team they are now, then, or if Reggie was coming out now, I think they could have got him either way, but even more so now, because now if Reggie was like rising senior now, let's say he was in the 27 class, he would be looking back at all the 1,000-yard backs they've had in recent years. He'd be looking at Jeremiah having the Heisman, caliber season, winning the Doak Walker. He'd have seen Jeremiah, the branding with the love and all the different things he was able to accomplish on and off the field, in the classroom, and all those type of things. And I think Reggie would have thrived at Notre Dame. And I think he would have seen that because he went to a good school. From what I've been told, it's a good. I think I don't know if it's a private school or not, but he went to a good school. I think it was a private school. Was a good student. Had some. There was something that mattered to him. It was part of the conversation coming in. He wasn't some like kid who's like, I don't play no school. Like Reggie. That stuff mattered to Reggie. And I don't think if you listen to Reggie talk now, I don't think that surprises you. Like he's a sharp guy. But yeah, I think he would have been very attracted to this current Notre Dame program. Would he have picked Notre Dame over USC back then? I still don't think so, because Notre Dame facility-wise was not nearly what it is now. Field-wise, it wasn't nearly what it is now. And USC is not then what it is now either. I think it would have been a lot harder to beat Pete, but I will say this, whether he would have picked Notre Dame or not, if Freeman was the coach back then, it would have been a lot harder for him to pick USC.
Without a doubt. Yep.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I'm with you completely.
Yep. All right. We got another super chat from Craig Sebring.
Hey guys, love the show. First time in a long time. I'm excited about both Irish and Dolphins. Hope one or both will win a championship. Well, Craig, I hate to break it to you, and I'm not going to dog on them too much because that's your avatar picture here. I would be beyond surprised if the Dolphins won the Super Bowl this year, but I will not be surprised in the slightest if Notre Dame does. So hoping for you, buddy.
Yeah. I hope one of those things happen. I don't care about the other. I don't mind it. I mean, if the Dolphins win, great. I know my Uncle Bruce would be happy. He's been a big Dolphins fan my whole life, but yeah, I hope one of them gets it. But I think right now Notre Dame's in a little bit better spot. So hopefully they'll be able to get it done here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. Appreciate you, man. James Franklin struggled to beat Ohio State and Michigan in the Big Ten. I could see him struggling to beat Miami and secretly Virginia. If Clemson is a downward trajectory, what do you think? Well, here's the thing about James Franklin. Could he still struggle to beat the big teams in any conference? Potentially. There's some things that he has to become a better game day coach. Mm-hmm. Where I like his trajectory better at Virginia Tech is the standard there is not the same as what it was for Penn State in the Big Ten, in my eyes. The standard at Penn State in the Big Ten was like, you need to be competing for conference championships. You need to be fighting for playoff spots, especially recently. Yeah. National championships, 100%. At Virginia Tech, it's not that they don't strive to win titles, but we were talking yesterday. There's just some programs that won't be perennial championship contender teams. Penn State is not in that conversation, whereas Virginia Tech, you could argue, should be. It's like, if he doesn't beat Miami every year at Virginia Tech, people are going to be like, all right, when's he getting out of town? Big game, James, yada, yada, yada. But when you're at Penn State and you go literally over against Ohio State outside of like a season, that can't be the standard. So some of it will depend on how he's viewed at Virginia Tech. But yeah, that's where I'm at with that one, Tyler.
Yep. Agree. Good one. I appreciate that, man. I'm with you. I think if Virginia Tech is the program it's capable of being, it's easier to compete with Miami and Clemson or Virginia than it will be with Ohio State and Michigan.
Yeah, agreed. It won't surprise me if in a couple of years I pull up FanDuel and Virginia Tech is one of the favorites to win the conference. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yep. All right. We got some more questions here, Trev. We got one from Sean Stewart.
Which play calling decisions over these past few years had you scratching your head or had you mad at the outcome?
Oh, man. I mean, we could be here all day. I think the one that always stands out to me is still the calling the double safety blitz, the play after with Jaden Mickey on the field, the play after your starting nickel went to the sideline. That was such an unfair thing to do to Jaden Mickey in his first college game. Put him in the slot. I don't care who he's going against, and then call a double safety blitz. That was a bad call. Made sense if you had everybody healthy, but still didn't love it. But that was one. That was one. I also didn't love the fourth down call against Ohio State. The second fourth down call where they called a quarterback sneak on fourth down when you got Aldrich Estime, and he was having a day against Ohio State, and you call a quarterback sneak from like 1.5 yards away. That was a terrible call to me.
Yeah, one of the other ones that I hated was like the attempted screen pass against Ohio State in 2023, because that was one where it's like, look, I get it. If it hits, you're a genius. If it doesn't work, people are going to look back on it. But that was a drive where the Notre Dame offensive line and Aldrich Estime started to lean on Ohio State a little bit, and I don't know if he touched the ball once.
Yep.
So that's where we're at. Archer, I bet you love those calls.
The thing about that one, I didn't mind the screen call. I hated the fact that they ran it to JT's side. He's great at playing screens. Like, that's what didn't make sense. Like, you ran it at the guy that's the best they have on their team at defending screens. Did you, like, not watch any of the games that he played already that year or last year? Like, that's not the guy you screen. That's my whole point. It's like, I can live with a screen there, but not to him and not a drop back screen. If you're going to do something like that, do like a screen where you're trying to boot around him, like one of the slide screens where you get the back out of the backfield, the tight end comes under. Or you like maybe a boot throwback type of screen where he chases you or something like that. But you don't run a slip screen to JT side. That's what I hated. It wasn't so much the screen in general. It was where you're running it was dumb. That's what I thought.
Another play calling decision that I hated happened last season. How, after in the first half, Jadarian Price rushes for 45 yards on 6 carries in the first half against Miami, and he proceeds to not touch the ball again the rest of the game.
Yeah.
I will never understand that. And I would understand. It's like, well, they have Jeremiah Love. It's like, okay, it's not like he ended with 27 carries.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a play calling decision that I left me scratching my head.
Yep. Did not make a lot of sense.
No. From Ryan Brandstetter, which college football talking head's reaction to Notre Dame winning a title would give you the most joy in the pettiest way?
You know one. Go ahead. Let me see.
I have a list, bro. I'm Paul Feinbaum.
Who's the number one? Give me your whole list, but who's the number one? Who's the one guy that you just cannot wait to watch his reaction to Notre Dame winning it all?
Number one is Cam Newton, but then after that's Paul Feinbaum. Reese Davis takes random shots at Notre Dame from time to time. I think
that are silly and petty.
Yeah. He's one.
Listening to Chris Fowler have to call the game where Notre Dame wins the title, chef's kiss. Because he's a Notre Dame hater as well. I don't think Kirk Herbstreit's a Notre Dame hater. I think Kirk Herbstreit's sort of I like to be the cool guy in the in crowd. You know, like he'll be cool to Notre Dame when it's the cool thing to do, and you know he'll take his little shots when he thinks it's cool. But he doesn't often take shots at Notre Dame. I think sometimes his criticism of Notre Dame I don't agree with, but I don't think they're like, you're just taking a shot to take a shot. I'm like, I don't think you know the team that well. But yeah, Chris Fowler's a Notre Dame hater.
Yeah. There's the tough part about Kirk Herbstreit is he definitely drinks the company Kool-Aid a little bit. So like whatever agenda ESPN is trying to push, Kirk Herbstreit will be almost the driver of that bus. But I'm with you. I wouldn't categorize him as a Notre Dame hater.
Yeah, being critical of Notre Dame doesn't make you a hater, because a lot of times it's like, well, I mean, he's got a point. Maybe he's going a little too far, but he's kind of got a point. So,
From Jay Melvin, Brian, Georgia last year reinstated Colby Young at wide receiver who beat his pregnant girlfriend. I don't understand why this continues to happen with Kirby's programs, and why does the university not do anything?
Because he makes them a lot of money. For Kirby Smart, it's just about winning football games, and for the institution, as long as he's making money and winning football games, we'll look the other way for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. If this many kids got arrested, and when we talk about speed, we're not talking about kids getting pulled over for going 75 and a 65. Or going 40 and a 25. We're talking about guys getting pulled over for going over 100 miles an hour, going 50 miles an hour over the speed limit in certain areas. We're like, you're putting your life and the life of others around you at risk. And they had a young man and a young woman who worked, a young man on the football team and a young woman that worked at the school lose their lives. And this still happens. And they do nothing. Well, they got to take responsibility on that. But you've created a program where accountability for what you do off the field is not there. And they don't care. So like when I listen to their president talk about, well, if they want to enforce the rules, I'm like, dude, you need to set this one out, bro. You need to shut your pie hole, sit this one out, because you are not the moral voice here. But here's the deal. If Georgia starts losing more games, then they'll care.
Without a doubt.
Then it'll be the reason that they move on from them. Well, we've just talked to them about, you got to run a better program. Too many kids get into trouble, and enough is enough. Yeah. So happens after the year after they go 8-5, or 7-6. Now you care. But they're winning. That's their priority, sadly.
It's a sad truth.
Yeah.
From Brandon Gilbert, why has there been such a rush on kids reclassifying?
Getting to college and getting your NIL money. I think it's a big part of it. It's always been there, but it's just about getting to college quicker and playing quicker. And I think this 5-year thing is going to enhance that. Because now you're going to have kids, well, I don't care about redshirting because I get 5 years now. So why not? Why not take that extra year? Instead of playing my senior year of high school against whatever league, why don't I just go to so-and-so school and just learn there? And whether I'm running a scout team or I'm running on special teams or whatever, like, why not do that? And I can get my NO money. I think it's a big part of it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think some kids are ready to move on early. Some kids aren't. I don't think reclassifying by itself is a bad thing, but I mean, I think that's a big reason why, is to get to that NIL deal. And then you're 1 year closer to getting to the National Football League also. I think that's part of it as well. I think some kids, it actually makes sense because some kids have very weird birthdays where they're not not quite as old as kids in the grade above them, but a little older than the kids in their grade, or they have one of those weird birthdays where they're the same age as the kids in the grade above them. Like I had that. Like I actually turned 19 in May when I graduated. A lot of kids in Virginia my age that were my age were in freshman in college because Ohio's a little bit different and when you start and birthdays and all this other kind of stuff. At least it was when I was coming up. So I mean, there sometimes it makes sense, but I mean that's really a big reason why is to get to that those NIL deals and get one year closer to the National Football League.
I was always one of the youngest kids in my class with my birthday being in May. I didn't turn 18 until 3 weeks before we graduated.
Yeah. So we were exact opposite.
Yep. From Chubby Groundhog, does Georgia's off the field issues have an effect on their recruiting?
I honestly don't know. I haven't heard anyone talk about it being an issue. Maybe. I mean, look, here's the thing, Chubby, is I can look and say, well, they haven't been recruiting as well lately when all these things are happening. Is this part of it? Sure, it could be. It could be. There could be some parents like, yeah, I'm not sending my kid there. So my favorite was when the Georgia fans were like, and the Georgia media people, when that kid that transferred from ECU got arrested, like, well, hold on a second, he just got here. Like, yeah, look how quickly he got into the old Georgia stuff. So yeah, I thought that was
Yeah, it's not great. There's like a street racing culture down in Georgia, down in Atlanta, that really picked up during COVID, and they all kind of adopt to it. From Bob Koski, is Notre Dame staying on Caden Henderson since he fell for a lie? Will Notre Dame try to change his mind?
I would imagine so. I don't think it's so much that he fell for a lie, as much as it. He's a really good player. They think he fits at Notre Dame in a lot of ways, so they're going to stay on him because of that. I don't think it's so much like, oh, we lost him for nefarious reasons to let's stay on him. I think if they would have lost him, just say, Coach, listen, I see myself as a better fit in their scheme. They offered me more money. Academically, this, that. I mean, if it was all legitimate reasons, I think they'd still stay on him. No, I do.
Yeah, he's the type of player that you stay on until the ink is, getting ready to sign on the dotted line. That's just the type of recruiter he is.
Agree. Absolutely agree. All right, got some more going from our guy, Ball Peen Shalali.
In terms of quarterback coaches, has Gino Guidugli proven to be in the top 10 of college quarterback developers with his work from CJ, Angeli, Minchie, and previous guys? If not, what do we need to see?
I think would I put him in the top 10? I'd have to actually sit down and think through that. What if I were to say why I would lean not yet is because, number one, we have yet to see Gino Guidugli at Notre Dame have a quarterback play for 2 years. He's only had 1 year where he's had a kid that he recruited to Notre Dame play for him. And he had a transfer in 23 who I thought regressed. He had a transfer in 24 who regressed a little bit as a passer. But you could easily say that as like, well, Sam didn't have a very good offensive line and young receivers. That's very true. That's, would he have struggled if his 2 top receivers from Wake Forest would have come? Who knows? Riley, I think a part of Riley's regression was, I think a big part of it was he missed the whole spring. He's learning a new offense. He missed the whole spring. And he's learning a new system and new teammates and new players. He was better by the end of the year, much better by the end of the year. And then, of course, you had CJ last year. So it's like, I give him credit for CJ, but I've always said, CJ is kind of like, if you can't develop CJ Carr, you're in the wrong business. CJ Carr showed up, kind of developed, and now you got to take him to that next level. That's unfair to say that about Coach Guidugli, but that's just the kind of the reality of it. It's like Albert Simeon comes in the first week of fall camp, is playing with great technique. We're like, man, what a great coach Joe Rudolph is. Like, no, this dude was doing that in high school. His thing is like, okay, can you adapt them into the system and do all those things to develop in other ways? And that's where Coach Guidugli, to a degree, is still kind of an INC, still a bit of an incomplete TBD. And I think this year is going to tell us a lot about his ability to develop. It's like, okay, yeah, you got CJ Carr to be a pretty good redshirt freshman where he was really smart and did this, but can you develop him to be like a star? I think that, but then the counter is like, but dude, you had Steve Angeli. Well, Steve Angeli did that in 4 games and only played 1 good team, or 2 good. It played a couple good teams, but and he struggled against Tennessee and played very well against Clemson. We didn't even see a whole body of work. Minchie has not started a single game yet. So we don't know how well he developed Kenny Minchie yet. So there's a lot of different things I look at that say, okay, I think there's still a little bit. I need to see more from a development standpoint where I think Coach Guidugli has earned a little bit of our benefit of the doubt is from a recruiting standpoint. I think that's where he's earns a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. And I think he's a solid coach, but if you're talking top 10, let me see what CJ does this year. Then let me see what Kenny does this year. I think those are all things that I'm like, okay, I want to see that first. Then I'll be ready to throw Gino Guidugli into that conversation.
Let me see who emerges as the number 2 quarterback. Like it's a lot of stuff like that. I'm going to pay more attention to the stuff that happens at Notre Dame versus, Steve is going into year 2 at Syracuse. So if he has success here, I don't want to be like, Gino Guidugli. It's like, well, Steve hasn't been in South Bend since, the spring of 2025. So I don't know if it'd be fair to give him all of the credit. You know what I mean? So I'm with you completely.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you.
This is fun. This is a good one.
From Ryan Schulte, who gets there first as an Irish in the following scenario? So who gets the first
time?
Yeah.
So let's do one of them. This will be fun. I like this one.
So who will get their first catch between Ian Premer and Quincy Porter?
I'm going to go Quincy Porter. Barely.
Yeah. I'm of the same. How about their first carry? I'm assuming this.
I think he means Javion.
Yeah, Javion Osborne or Jonas Walton.
Yeah. I'm going to go because he played in the spring and Javion did. I'm going to go Jonas Walton. But that one I'm back and forth on because I think Javion could catch up real quickly. But I'm just going with one guy played in the spring and one guy didn't. That's why I'm going with Jonas in that one.
This one's close. How about Keon Keeley or Francis Brew?
Keon. That's my dog. I'm going with Keon. That's who's going to get it. Yep.
Love it.
Lambeau Field. Keon's going to get it. That's my
feeling. Ooh, game 1. Let's go.
Game 1, baby. Yeah.
Okay.
No pressure there, right?
Okay. I love that. Then first interception between DJ McKinney or Mark Zachary.
I'm going to
Thanks,
go DJ.
fellas.
I'm going to go DJ.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the starter, so I'm going to go DJ.
Yep, I'm with that.
But I could see Mark kind of coming in late in the game and picking one. So I could see that, but I'm going to go DJ because I think he'll be the starter.
Agreed. Yep. From Anthony Hans. Should I feel old when I hear Fitzgerald, Finley, or Julius Jones Jr. score and remember those are their kids?
Yes, Anthony, you absolutely should feel old because I do. And if I'm going to feel old, I want you to feel old with me. So, yes, let's feel old together when we hear about, obviously, Devin Fitzgerald's dad is Larry Fitzgerald. Caden Finley's dad is Jermichael Finley. And then, obviously, Julius Jones Jr., we know who his dad was. But, yeah, like Jerome Bettis, not so much because Jerome played back in, like, the early 90s. I feel old. Same with Bryant Young. Saying Bryce Young doesn't make me feel old, but, like, Devin Fitzgerald, like Larry Fitzgerald was like a decade later in college. You know, Julius Jones Jr. was like 6, 7, 8, 9 years later than those guys. And which means I was older. Like when Jerome was in college, I was 14 when he left Notre Dame. Like I still felt like I was young. But like I was coaching. I remember being at a game at Duquesne that I think they were playing Pitt I don't know if they were playing Pitt. They're playing somebody, but Larry Fitzgerald was at the game. When I think he was at Pitt or was getting ready to leave Pitt. And I was like, dude, I was a professional. Like I had a job at that point in time. That makes me feel old. I was coaching, I think, in Julius Jones's my first year of coaching I was in my third year of coaching in Julius's last year of college. So yeah, those guys make me feel really old. The worst is when Plexico Burris' kid is at Notre Dame because I played against him, and it just makes me feel old. I shouldn't. I'm almost 50, but it does. It makes me feel old.
I can't say it makes me feel old because I just turned 29, but talking about Larry Fitzgerald's kid at Notre Dame is weird for me because, like, I grew up playing with, like, the Arizona Cardinals on Madden when Larry Fitz was in his prime and stuff like that. It's weird, man. It's weird to think about.
It's a good one.
Which opposing player are you excited to see the most? And which opposing player will keep you up at night for the game?
Which one am I most excited to see this season? Honestly, I'm really looking forward to watching Colton Joseph play quarterback at Wisconsin. That's really the one for me that I think is going to be, if they do right by him and build the system around what he does well, I think he could be fun to watch for them. Which opposing player will keep me up at night before the game? It's a couple. Malachi Toney is one.
Yeah.
That's one. Kevin Jennings a little bit. If he gets hot a little bit, is kind of that guy. That's kind of it, to be honest with you. I don't know that there's any defensive players that are going to keep me up at night, but those are the top couple guys on offense that are going to keep me up at night a little bit. Colton Joseph a little. You know, game one, kid running around. They don't know what the system's going to look like with him. A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Colton Joseph is that player for me that I'm excited to see. Outside of that, Arch Manning might keep me up the night of January 24th. Dante Moore might keep me up on the night of January 24th. Jeremiah Smith might keep me awake the night of January 24th. Outside of that, you got nothing. From Anthony Hines, if Notre Dame wins the Natty, do you see other conferences start to campaign against Notre Dame and force them to join a conference?
I mean, they can try, but they'll have even less power if Notre Dame wins at all. It would not go over well. They wouldn't have a lot to say. You know, if anything, they would push Notre Dame to become an even louder proponent of pooling media rights if they tried to force Notre Dame into a conference. I don't think so. I think what you'd see them do is, if they're smart, they would say, hey, Notre Dame, we don't need you to join a conference in football. We just want the deal you have with the ACC with us. That's what we want. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you want to be independent football? We respect that. But let's do this deal with us. You know, you can get out of that contract in 2030. You can get out for a much cheaper rate. We'll pay half of the exit fee. We'll give you this deal. We'll give you a nice little chunk of change. Sign with us. You know, come join us for. I mean, the Big Ten could say, hey, listen, you've already got your hockey team here. we're in the region. Join us. We'll play 4 or 5 games a year. We'll make sure that you get one of this team every year. We'll let you get your traditional rivals back on the schedule. Like, give us the same deal you gave the ACC. SEC would probably try to do that too. Hey, I don't know if the SEC's would be as compelling, but I think that's what those leagues would do. It's like, hey, do the deal with the ACC that you have with us. That's what I think. If Notre Dame wins it all, that's what I think you'd see them do.
Agreed.
Come do with us what you're doing with the ACC.
Agreed completely.
Yep, that's at least if they were smart, that's what I would do.
From MBDT Reality, was the healthy 2025 Notre Dame team better than the healthy 2024 Notre Dame team?
Yes. I think so, yeah. Slightly. Yeah.
More talented, yes. Yeah.
I'd say probably more dominant when they were at their peak.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's a two-parter. This is the last one that we'll have here, Trev.
From Archer, our resident Ohio State fan, with the news that Chaz Coleman has been medically dismissed from Tennessee, largely related to mental health struggles and homesickness, will more players start to prioritize fit over top dollar?
I hope so. Now, there's a lot more to that than this, but there's a lot more to this than just that. But yeah, I think so. I think so. What I hope, however, is that, and this is wishful thinking, but I hope that more agents start putting more care into advising their clients into a wider range of decision-making tools than just the most amount of money. That would be nice. That'd be very nice.
Yes, agreed completely. Fit matters. We talk about it all the time. We just got done talking about it with Albert Simeon's recruitment. Fit matters. It does.
Yeah. But there's a lot more to this than just mental health. But in theory, I think that is legitimate to a degree, but there's a lot more to this one.
Then a follow-up, another one from Archer, follow-up to the Chaz Coleman situation. How differently would these situations look if the NIL money had to be repaid if the players never played? See the Sorsby situation as well.
It would just depend on why the kid didn't play. If a kid goes away from home and he just literally has some legitimate, like, mental, like, depression, something that's like, dude, this kid's not just homesick. This kid is dealing with something, like, he needs legitimate help. I would not necessarily want to get in a situation where I would try to recoup that money. That's going to be a real bad look for you as an institution.
Yeah.
Brendan Sorsby situation, I freaking absolutely want my money back. It's like, look, if I go to a restaurant and I order a meal that I've never had before and it's made well and prepared well and I just don't like it, I'm paying for it. This is all me. I made a bad decision. But if you bring me out a defective meal, I order a medium steak and it comes out black. Yeah, this is defective. Either give me a new one or I want my money back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Thanks.
Like, it's kind of one of those things. I've never sent a meal back and asked for my money back because I got something I've never had before and just didn't like. I tried it. I didn't like it. I want my money. No, dude, that's part of the risk you run when you order something you've never had before. But you bring me something that's not prepared correctly. Hey, I ordered an 11-ounce steak and that thing's that big around. That ain't 11 ounces. Okay, now I want something to be done. Like, here's an example. I bought some ground beef the other day from Martin's. And the sell-by date was like the 21st sell-by date. And I tried to make ground beef the next afternoon. I bought it on the 20th. 2 days later, and I opened up the packaging and it had taken a hard turn. It should not go bad that quickly. I took it back, got my money back, and got some new ground beef. Now, the sell-by date was the 21st, and then I try to make it on the 27th. That's on me. No, that's on me. Like, dude, you can't. How long do you not understand how fresh meat works when it's not frozen? You know what I mean? Like, that's on me. So it just depends on the situation. Every situation's different. Brendan Sorsby, I would not have given him his money. Would not. But I think they did that because they didn't want him to sue them And then all these issues start. They were afraid of him doing to them what he's done to everyone else. But if a kid has a legitimate, like, man, this kid's really strong with something, you know, that's
even
a
the
tough one.
Sorsby situation has its layers. I mean, do I have any hard proof that it's hush money? No.
Yeah.
But I'd be willing to bet you it was because Texas A&M or Texas Tech is dying on the hill that they didn't know the stuff that went on at Cincinnati. And okay. Like, I bet.
I'm sorry. Swanton Bomb said, what if the steak is homesick? Oh, my goodness. We can tell that our guy Albert McKinney is way behind in the show because he said Georgia and Alabama do not have the money to go recruit like Notre Dame, Miami, Texas, Oregon. That is real talk. Yeah, it's always funny when you see guys in the chat and they're like 30 minutes behind.
It's even better when it's like a food question, dude, because you'll be spitting something about like a 2027 recruit and somebody's like, I would choose egg rolls over it personally.
Like, dude, that was 45 minutes ago. That's my favorite part. It's hilarious. I love it when that happens. I absolutely love it when that happens. But yeah, that's really good. That's really good. All right, Trev. I don't see any more super chats. But yeah, here's one. Let me see here real quick. Let me see. Yeah, that'll good. There's some other good ones, but we do kind of gotta wrap it up here pretty soon and get rolling.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Fun show today. Very, very busy show, but definitely a lot of fun. Recapped Albert Simeon's commitment. We had a Friday Free-For-All Mailbag. Brian and I will be back next week. The guys are going live tonight on IB Nation Sports Beat to also talk about Albert Simeon's commitment to Notre Dame and then also talk about more Notre Dame football topics. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. On your way out of this show, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends, family, anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football as much as you do. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So until next time, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown podcast.
You did get me to laugh, Swan Bomb. That is definitely